Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something that I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say Carpe Diem. Go after the things that you want in life. Something I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, but this time talk about it with other people. All of you. And that's what we're doing here. And today we're going to talk about season 4, episode 4. We are so far into this show at this point, getting pretty far into season 4. And so it's been really fun to see how this whole thing has been developing. Before we get into this episode, the last interview that I did was with Melanie Ragone, who was a grip for seasons 1 and 2. This was a really interesting interview for me because I watch a lot of interviews with actors and directors from other, TV shows and films, and I often hear the word grip mentioned. And I always thought that sounds like an interesting job. What is that? And I had no idea. And so I got to ask all of those questions to Melanie. She was really forthcoming with her thoughts. She has a lot of inside scoop, a lot of inside knowledge. And I don't know, it was just a different kind of interview. It's always fun to look at the show through a different lens, and hers definitely is a different lens from what we've been hearing. So be sure to check that one out. But today we're going to talk about season 4, episode 4, which was called Tonya and Nancy. Now, of course, look, if you are into the Olympics like I've always been, this is definitely a reference to Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan from the 1994 Olympics. For those who don't remember this happening, before the 94 Olympics, which was in Lillehammer, Norway, before the US championships for figure skating, where it was going to be determined who was going to be on the team, Tonya Harding, I don't even know how to say this in a way that is definitely true to the legal proceedings that happened, but Nancy Kerrigan was attacked outside of in a practice facility. Somebody came through and basically clubbed her on the knee, and she fell to the ground. She's going, why? It was this big moment, very, very publicized, very televised, very covered by the media. And then as things went on, it was discovered that Tonya Harding's, I think, boyfriend at the time, Jeff Gillooly, issued the attack on Nancy Kerrigan. I don't think he actually did it, but he issued it. And was she involved? And it was all this big hoopla that was happening. And so in the end, Tonya and Nancy both ended up competing at the Olympic Games. Nancy did not recover in time to compete at the US Championships. Tonya technically won and then was later stripped of the title because legal stuff. And then, they competed together, just the two of them, for the 94 Olympic Winter Games. So that is the story there. My assumption here is that everybody who's watching Tonya and Nancy in this show is watching them at the Lillehammer Olympic Games, which was in February of 94, which is going to bring me to, my wider concern about the timeline of season 4. I have expanded this beyond the Mothra and Godzilla concerns. There are a number of details that they're putting into this show right now that don't make sense from a timeline standpoint. They're just a little off. So that is one of them. But we'll get into that as we get there because I'm already getting ahead of myself. We were talking about season 4, episode 4, Tonya and Nancy. This originally aired September 9th, 2017. It's directed by Stacey Passan. It was written by Allison Tatlock. And here's the description. The Comet team begins hiring more employees to help index the ever-expanding web, while AgX rover finds itself falling behind. Meanwhile, Cameron finds out about Bosworth's debt while he assists her in fixing up her new trailer home. It's a pretty good summary, as summaries go, I've got to say. Nicely done. Let's get into the scene-by-scene breakdown. Let's just jump right in. Lots of fun things to say about this one. So first of all, we are going to start off. We really need to set the stage with what's happening with all these competitive website indexing services. So we're going to start in the Comet office, but we have a close-up of Rover on the screen. Joe is manning the computer. He's the one driving here. And so Joe is saying it still feels random. I searched Dallas plus Cowboys. I'm sure the first hit is a crappy NFL fan site, but the second site that comes up, he points to it. And we can see on the screen, the writing is very small here, but I paused this. What comes up as a second listing on screen says Dallas plus Cowboys, the largest honky tonk in Alabama, featuring live country music, drinks, dancing, and more. So there were a number of other entries on screen. Relevance was variable across them. So Gordon is next to him. He's looking at the screen and he's saying, yeah, well, maybe Rover knows you don't give a shit about football. I like that the whole idea of sports and whether or not that's important to people, or specifically to Joe and Gordon, keeps coming up throughout this episode. Joe says, yeah, I forgot you were an all-American running back at Cal. Gordon's like, hey, I went to a game once. They weren't sporty people. Joe's like, I'm just saying Rover has a relevance problem. Haley is going to shout from the next room. Basically, there were 3 people currently working at Comet. There's Joe and Gordon, who are making business decisions, scoping out the landscape, and Haley is indexing every single site. So she shouts from the next room. She says, hey, is Scientology a religion or a cult? Joe immediately shouts back. He says, cult. There you have that. Haley says they obtained nonprofit status in October. So, but wait, there's more. Gordon kind of looks back at her with a shrug, like, I don't know. She says, never mind, I'll figure out where it goes. Okay, so maybe it's not an open and shut case that Scientology is a cult. Maybe Haley needs to do a little bit of digging here. You know, one person's cult is another person's not cult. But, you know, this feels like a good time to plug. There's another show that I really like that I will never, ever cover because it is way too close to how I think about the world, and could get me very much in trouble. But I just in terms of like having to deal with contentious viewpoints on things I don't want to talk about at all. But there's a show called The Path. It's about a cult, or is it a cult, or is everything a cult? Discuss amongst yourselves. It's really, really interesting show. Also 40 episodes, really well done. But yeah, this was kind of a fun little, like, probably a deep discussion at this point around Scientology that I think people are a little bit further along on now, in terms of like deciding what they think this is. But, you know, Haley and Joe, they're just putting it out there. So Joe says, these results are mediocre at best. Final grade for Rover's genius search engine, C-. Gordon scoffs at it. He's like, D-. We're then going to hear a motorcycle engine revving because somebody else is actually in this room, somebody who does not work here, and it is Cameron. She's brought her motorcycle inside Comet, and she's working on it there. And Gordon quietly says, is that really necessary? He's going to walk over to Cam. She's working on it. She's tinkering with it. He says, it doesn't sound right. Sounds like the gas line. As she shouts back, she's like, got it. That's Cam's way of saying, shut up. I don't want your help. This is not where I want your input, which is funny because of what she is about to do. So Gordon kind of puts his hands up. He's going to back off. He's like, okay, just stepping away from the motorcycle. He says, well, not like I literally grew up in an auto shop or anything. True. Fair point. She probably could use help here. She's not very good at accepting it, though, is she? And she is very quick to offer it. Gordon's going to sit back down next to Joe. Joe says it's just until the rain stops. So I guess we're meant to be seeing, like, it's been raining for a while here. We're in the winter-ish. I think we're well into winter, regardless of what timeline you're on here. So Gordon says, well, I can't hear myself think. Cam starts to walk over to them. She's going to inject herself into their conversation. Joe says, listen, if they can fix the relevance problem, we do have a competition on our hands. Or we could have a competition on our hands. Haley's watching all of this. Gordon's like, well, you know, if you hit search for, Cameron says, is that Rover? Oh boy. Joe says, well, we give it a C-. Well, technically Joe gave it a C-. Gordon gave it a D-. Kim's like, that bad? Gordon says, you really haven't seen it? Like, come on, this is Donna's project. You trying to tell me you haven't been poking around here? Cam is going to sit on Joe's lap so that she can use the computer. Gordon's like, what is this? Like, what, this is a professional environment. So he's a little put off by this seating arrangement. Cam says, no, I really haven't. She starts to type into a search. She says, oh yeah, I see what you mean. Even with the basic rules engine, the results are garbage. The crawler's too static. Joe's looking on at all this with interest. Gordon won't even watch. She's like, I'm not looking at you while you're sitting on Joe's lap. I'm not doing it. She says, still, the way they grab the titles is actually kind of clever. So whatever band-aid the team came up with to grab those titles. Gordon leans in to stop her. He's like, okay, this with the seating arrangement. Joe is still smiling. He's just happy to have her sitting on his lap, really, and for her to be interested in the project he's doing. Cam says, okay, I'm just going to check the HTML. It takes 1 second. She types something in. She says, oh, the algorithm's too stupid to know that they're equivalent synonyms for a search phrase. Gordon's like nodding, but he's looking away. She says, or different spellings like color, C-O-L-O-R, the English spelling with the U. She says, still, I'd give it a B minus. Gordon's like, come on. She says, no, a solid B for concept, but demerits for poor execution. Joe's smiling a little less because, you know, it's not great that Cameron thinks there's potential with this product, or this service, I should say. Cam's like, you asked. They both are like, no, we didn't. Neither of us asked. Nobody asked that question. Nobody asked your involvement. Yep. Cam is going to stand up. She says, this wouldn't be hard to beat. You know, you just have to come up with a more sophisticated algorithm. Gordon says, that's not our approach, though. Joe, he's doing his salesman talk with his hands thing. He's like, people need a curated list, a guide through the disorganized maze of the web, not a bunch of impersonal math. Oops, that's not what you say to Cam. Cam's like, first of all, math is very personal to me. Joe's eyebrows raise. He's like, of course, I just meant, it's like, honey, this is why we're not working together. Cam says, and second, curation is fine if you guys have 500 websites or 5,000 even, but what are you going to do when you have 5 million? How are you going to guide people through that? Joe, this is a concept, I think, that looking at this from 2024, we can say, yeah, this is correct. We think of words like scale, like when you think of a company, when you think of a startup, the word scalability is one that gets thrown around a lot. It's very important. Being able to grow at the speed that you need to grow is critical. And doing something that's centered on humans doing research that you are employing is a tricky thing to scale. It's downright difficult, if impossible, to scale the model that they're currently looking at. So, you know, she's raising an excellent question that from a 2024, once again, Cam has raised another thing that from a 2024 mindset, we're thinking that's actually a really good point. Other ideas that people are presenting are good ideas. It's just, you know, the type of model that Joe and Gordon are looking at, like, we're also seeing that circle around here, even in 2024. You get the idea of like an influencer who has a tremendous amount of authority over a volume of people can really, like, those people can make a lot of money through their channels, through their blogs, through their whatever it is they're doing, through their content. So, you know, we've seen a model where low volume can also produce quite a lot of revenue as well. But that's not the model that a lot of these companies in Silicon Valley are probably going to be driving towards in the end. So she's raising really good points. Joe doesn't have a response for that, though. He's really stuck on his idea of why it's so important to have that personal touch. So he says, like, we tell you which site is best. The whole company is built around a human approach. It's like, that's not like scalability. Like, oh, that's not what we're trying for. Haley is going to shout from the next room. There's like a gateway screen up for a porn site on her computer. And she's like, porn alert. Gordon says, yep, I'm coming. She gets up from her workstation as Gordon's coming over. She says, following company protocol and stepping away from the machine. Yep, so that's how they've decided to handle these things. Gordon's coming. He's gonna check it out. Joe is going to chase Cam as she walks towards the motorcycle. He says, "You're mad." She laughs a little. She's like, "I'm not. I'm not." He says, "I didn't think you wanted to work on this, but if you do," then she says, "I don't." He says, "Okay, I'm just saying that math can't tell a qualitative difference between good and bad. A computer can't tell me what I want." Cam looks back at him. She says, "Not yet." She adjusts something on the bike. He just sort of sighs. He's got folded arms. And I mean, I think that this episode came out in 2017. Here we are in 2024, and this conversation is ever more relevant, with all of the conversation and advancements with AI, especially recently. This conversation is one that continues to be deeply discussed. So it's interesting to look at this depending on when you're looking at this, because it just takes on a different meaning with each sort of decade that we're considering these questions. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me with Cam. I have to say, as a general note on Cam feels really lost to me. She feels really alone and lonely and lost in her life right now. I keep coming back to a thing Joe said to her about Tom when he found out she got married, and he was like, "Oh, you were happy for a second, and the person standing closest to you was the source." Or you thought the person standing closest to you was the source. And I just think, like, less so about a person, just like, is there anything in her life that feels really rooted and true to herself right now? I think there are a lot of good things happening around her, but I don't know that she knows what she wants right now. And you know what? Like, she's rebounding from a failed marriage, so failed marriage, I don't know, a divorce. She's rebounding from a divorce. She's rebounding from her relationship with Tom, her life in Japan. There's a lot of readjusting that she needs to do to figure out what things look like. And I don't know that she's figured it out yet. So she's trying it out in a lot of areas here. And I think even this idea that, like, the place that she could work on the motorcycle, because she got a motorcycle now, is inside the Comet office. But she's not using any of these services. She doesn't have, like, her own computer that she's checking this stuff out with. She's using Joe's computer to look at Rover. She's assessing that landscape, but she doesn't work for this company. Does she want to work for this company? Does she not? I think Joe is really, it's like sand through his fingers. It's like, what is Cam looking for right now? I think Joe is on, it seems to me, fairly stable ground. And that's a really tough place to have a relationship from, because he's like, I kind of know what I'm looking for. And maybe today this is all the right configuration for Cam, but then that means by tomorrow the sand will have run through and it won't be anymore. Like, I think it's a very sort of walking on eggshells sort of way to have a relationship. And for me, this is something I'm going to keep coming up against in this episode, where, like, they got together at Comdex, they got together in 402, and those were like the right moments for them. But there are a lot of things about this situation where it's like, I don't know, are they on the same page? Does Cam even know what page she's on? She's just flipping between them, trying to figure it out for herself. Okay. I will eventually focus as I'm talking to you in this episode. Okay, we're going to go to Donna's office. Definitely a green tint happening in here, I'll tell you that much. Green and maybe a little yellow. One of the things that's interesting about Donna in this episode is, and maybe this is her taking the note from Diane from the last episode, and this is like the post awkward dinner party result of Donna. Donna, in a lot of these scenes, if not all of them with her team, chooses lower status physical body placement. She'll sit when other people are standing. She'll sit on a desk when other people are standing. She's very often putting herself, when she can control herself, she feels like maybe I should be at a lower level from them. And I think it's something that might serve to make her feel less intimidating to the team. So and because of that, the camera is often showing us shots where we see like her face, and then we see like the other people's bodies because they're up higher than her. Or, we're not necessarily getting all of those like under her chin shots to make her seem really intimidating. And I do think this is a note. This is something she's consciously trying to do after what Diane said to her in that last episode. So she's actually seated behind her desk listening. Tonya and Boz are standing on the other side of her desk talking. Tonya is saying we have functionality issues. Users aren't getting something useful as their first return, so they're leaving the site. Frankly, we launched too early. She gives a side eye to Boz at that point. Tonya does. There's something going on here, right? You can see that even from the beginning. So Boz says, well, we had a major competitor in Comet. Donna's like, okay, let's try to not make this about Comet. There's a larger landscape. Donna keeps being like, I don't want to talk about my daughter's project. I don't want to, like, she just doesn't want to go there. She'd rather just make them one of many competitors that they're dealing with right now. Boz says, exactly, we needed to get out there to have a presence. Tonya says, Comet isn't competitive. Donna says, what did I just say? I don't want to talk about my daughter's project. Tonya's like, sorry. Donna says, it seems like we were impatient. Boz says, no. It's good that we're live. The growth will be there. The rover algorithm is going to get better with usage. We need users to track. The data is going to help us refine this algorithm. We've got to stay competitive. By the end of the episode, and after all the stuff that comes out about the Boz's financial state, after we find out Tonya knows about it all, it may throw a lot of things he's saying here into question, but also looking at what he's saying from a 2024 standpoint, we also know that algorithms do get smarter the more people are using them because they have more data to filter. So he's also not wrong. But is the timing right here? Everybody is having the same conversation from different vantage points. The Comet team and the Rover team are all looking at these same questions. Are we competing? Who has more potential down the road? What model can work better? Tonya's trying to say they're doing something different. They're not a competitor, but we do have competitors. Tonya is still arguing with him. She says, I'm telling you, we have a leg up on Comet. Donna's like, excuse me. Tonya says, index sites. Donna's like, thank you. I don't want to talk about my daughter's project. Tonya says, if we could have just a little faith in our system. Boz says, I do have faith. That's why I launched the damn thing. Donna says, the site is live. The question of timing is a moot point. Please don't come here and argue with me. I've got a lot of other things on my plate. Boz is going to hold up a hand. He starts to walk away. He's like, all right. Donna says, how can you lead this effectively if you're not speaking the same language? Pull it together. Tonya's like, thank you. Boz says, all right. And they both walk out of Donna's office and they leave in separate directions. Note, separate directions. Donna sees that. She shakes her head. She's like, these two are not a cohesive unit supervising this team. So again, we're raising all of these questions from different standpoints. Donna is trying to, it's tricky because Donna is trying to sort of lower her status a little bit to make them feel like they're being heard, but they're not on the same page. So I think all of these challenges with Rover are now going to seep to the surface because Donna's changing what she's doing a little bit. We're going to see where the weak links are here, and there are a bunch of them. There are a whole bunch of them. Oh, also, for what it's worth, I mean, and Tonya's saying, like, we ultimately have a different model and a different product from Comet / other indexing sites. I don't know how you can lump all of the indexing sites together if others are also using an algorithm, because what makes Comet different is that it is not. But when we looked at, like the Rover results that the Comet team was looking at for, Dallas Cowboys, yeah, I mean, that conversation they were having in the last episode about how they could I had a Band-Aid where they could grab the titles, but the titles didn't necessarily tell you what was in the body of the content. And now we do have web crawlers that are searching all of it, and they have rules engines around all of it. But that's why we end up getting a honky tonk in Alabama as your number 2 result for Dallas Cowboys, because it was Dallas Cowboys in Alabama, a honky tonk, so it's just, we're seeing the limitations of that problem. We're seeing them from a future standpoint, and it's really interesting to watch people try to resolve the problems we now know have been resolved, or at least are much further along. We're going to go back to Comet. Joe and Gordon are talking, they're eating, they're in front of a whiteboard. Once again, their employee Haley is indexing sites. Gordon's saying, yeah, search is a land grab. And once we grab all the land, then we can think about incorporating more code. Joe says, Cam's got a point though. The current model isn't scalable. The 3 of us can't keep up with expansion, but we shouldn't add more code. We should add more people. So that's how Joe wants to fight this problem. Or it's like, how many? I mean, we can't pay everybody in Necco wafers. Hiring an engineer is one thing. Joe says, what's our strongest section? Gordon says, probably comedy. Joe says, exactly. Haley loves comedy, so it's it's our most thorough, well-organized section. Gordon says, well, then we need experts. Someone who's obsessed with, like, together they say sports, because that's obviously neither of them. Gordon says, exactly. Joe says, we need more Haleys, and he smiles. It would be nice to have more Haleys, wouldn't it? So they're both kind of, Gordon's saying, we could hire one engineer to create an algorithm, but Joe continues to hold on to this idea. It's the people that make this special. And that actually makes a lot of idea for both of their, it makes a lot of sense for both of their standpoints. Gordon has this engineering background. He can see the logic of the algorithm. He can see the point that Cameron was making. He knows that probably the most efficient way to solve this is to have one person create code that can do all this work. Joe is about bringing people together. Joe has been about bringing people together since season 1. That has been what he does always. And so that's the stance that he's taking here too. And he's assembling people he really cares about now. So, like, there's a lot of love in that labor of love. I don't know. It's like, can you get Gordon on board with that? Gordon seems to be on board with that. He likes the idea of having more Haleys. All right, we're going to get some synth music here. We see a dirt road, close-up of the dirt road along a fence, long fence. Cam's riding her motorcycle up to the camera and then past the camera. Get close-up of Cam riding on the motorcycle. Motorcycle sputters. You hear a banging sound, it breaks down. Oh man, there she was fixing it up, and now it's not working. She puts the kickstand down, she gets off, she takes off her helmet. She's wearing this, I really note, she's got this old leather jacket on. Like, surely Cam at this point in her life can afford nice things, but she's got this old leather jacket on that has a giant tear where the seam is between the back, the back of the sleeve and where it meets the rest of the shirt. Just a huge tear in that section. But this is the jacket she wants. Is this something she found at like a vintage, a Salvation Army type of place, or Goodwill? Maybe a Goodwill. Does it have other meaning for her? I don't know. But this is the jacket. She's going to lean down. She's going to make a really big mistake and touch the hot engine. And you hear the sizzle sound, and she cries out in pain. She's really frustrated. She's just like periodically just sort of like grunting and letting out little exclamations of pain and frustration. She says, damn it, kisses her hand. She's going to throw her helmet at the point where she touches that hot engine and it hurts her hand. So it's a unfortunate incident, but it's put her in an interesting place. And when she looks around at where she stopped, she sees this beautiful plot of land, nothing on it, beautiful green field of green grass. And there's a sign that says, if you lived here, you'd be home now. She looks at it And she gets kind of hopeful. Is this her literal sign? Maybe. All right, we're going to go to credits here, and then we're going to come back and we're going to meet a new character. What a great intro to the character of Katie, played by, oh, I should have looked this up, Anna Klumsky. I've done some interviews where people have pronounced her name differently, so I don't know. She's so good. She is so, so good as Katie. Oh my goodness. What a great intro. So Katie is going to be interviewed by Joe and Gordon at Comet. She's sitting in a chair against the wall that's underneath a vintage poster of, I'm going to say, AIGA San Francisco. It's a professional organization for design serving the Bay Area and beyond. That's what it is. I actually was able to see this poster online. So one thing I want to note here is that we see Katie, we see this interview happening with Joe and Gordon, and then we see the timestamp at the bottom of the screen, 6 weeks later. We'll come back to that in a little bit because we're going to see another timestamp later on in this episode. So Katie's doing this interview. We know it has to have been some time that's elapsed because they have a whole team of people they've hired at this point. So they're doing this interview with Katie because they basically want somebody who's going to oversee all the other people they've hired. So Katie is saying, yeah, the best thing about a PhD in library science is I get to call myself a bibliothecographer. Joe is looking at the resume that Gordon is holding, and he says, so you were a photography archivist at Chicago Art Institute. Gordon seems very impressed by that. He says, that sounds cool. Katie's like, well, I was hypothermic, actually. I survived exactly one winter. I'm a California girl. Gordon kind of puts down the resume. He's like, oh, are you? She says, but not in the David Lee Roth kind of way. Gordon is smiling at her. Gordon likes her, like really likes her. I love that this scene is both a highly functional job interview with a candidate they definitely want to hire. So you instantly understand that Katie is the right person for this job. But you can also see the instant attraction that is mutual between Gordon and Katie here. There's like this happening all throughout this interview. Right about here, she says, not in the David Lee Roth kind of way. He's just like, oh, Gordon. Joe says, okay, can you give us an example of your methodology? For instance, how do you organize your CDs? And Katie gives a great monologue. I mean, on the scale of great monologues in this show, this is a very different one, and this is a really good one. She says, well, okay, my brother is really into metal, and I helped him manage his collection. I put all the death metal CDs on one shelf from the simple bands like Obituary and Cannibal Corpse on the left to melodic and technical death in the middle, followed by Death Black and Grind Death and Death crossovers. And then I put the industrial death, folk death, and barely death at the end. Joe's nodding. She says, and then the next shelf was for black metal through the whole Norwegian scene, like Mayhem and Burzum, through the unblack, and then the not really black, but sort of fits like Cradle of Filth. Gordon hears Cradle of Filth, and he's going to sit up a little straighter. And his eyebrows raise just a bit, and he's smiling at her. So he hears Cradle of Filth, and he goes, it's like, Gordon. And she says, and do you want me to keep going? Then there's Raunchy Power. Gordon goes, it's like, I don't even know. It's like he's taken aback, but do go on. It's so good. She's answering this question honestly. She's not trying to flirt with him, but she's happy to be flirting with him. But he's happy to take this however he wants to take it. And it's also a functional job interview. Oh, it's so good. One thing I want to say before I go on in this scene is that, as I have mentioned before, I a previous podcast that I had done that was a traditional audio only podcast with a friend of mine, Fish, we covered the show Felicity. And there is a speech from one of the characters that is in a pivotal episode, an episode we both loved. She gives this speech that is full, it basically compares moments in a relationship to Sarah McLachlan albums. And I'm going to say 98% of the rest of the Felicity fandom loves this speech. Maybe everybody but me likes this speech. As far I have not been able to find somebody else who did not like this speech. I listened to that speech and I was like, this to me sounds like product placement throughout the entire speech. I like the idea of having, an important character relationship equated to different Sarah McLachlan albums. I love the fact that the show that is very synonymous with Sarah McLachlan for that time period is building it right into the script and into the dialogue. But that character is known for like short, biting quips and sarcastic energy, not long product placement speeches. So it felt really jarring to me and never really worked. And I always wondered, could you do a speech like that and make it feel organic? And then I see this. And this, to me, does mention band names, also mentions just subgenres within metal, but it fits. It makes sense. It makes sense why this character is talking this way. It's well delivered. It's well written. I don't know. I saw this and it sort of restored my faith that you could do a monologue like this and make it work. So yeah, just brilliantly done. So back to it. Katie saying, and then there's raunchy power. She was like, yeah, that's perfect. We got it. Gordon's like, raunchy power? Tell me more, he's thinking. Joe says, most people just alphabetize. Gordon flirts a little bit. He's like, you sure this was your brother's collection? Like, you sure you don't have raunchy power on your shelves? Katie laughs a little bit. She's like, she's dishing it back, okay? Just says, okay, one final thing. Katie is looking at Gordon and she's gonna reluctantly pull her gaze back to Joe. He says, how would you list a website about barks? Katie says, well, it depends if you mean dog noise, tree layer, root beer, that's barks with a Q, or boat. Joe laughs a bit. Gordon's like, wait, bark is a boat? She says, yeah, technically it's a sailing ship with 3 or more masts. Gordon's like, we don't even know the answer to our own trick question. He's trying to suppress a smile here. Katie smiles. She's like, yes, she's nailing this interview. Joe smiles. He says, Dr. Katie Herman, you are officially hired as Comet's chief ontologist. She slaps her leg. She stands up. She's like, perfect. She laughs. They shake hands. Joe says, let's introduce you to the obsessives. I like that they've given a name to the people that they've hired. And it matches what Gordon and Joe were saying they needed. They needed people who were obsessed with different subject matter, and now they are calling them the obsessives. We're going to get a really fun music choice here that isn't of this time period, but we're going to go, there's like a really 80s feel song that we're going to get here called Elevate Her. And it's very funny because I had never put all of this together until doing this deep dive because of all the notes that I was taking. But my first thought, which will be relevant in a moment, when I heard this song was, this feels like the kind of song you would have heard on a Jane Fonda workout tape. Put a pin in that, because boy, am I right. Well, I don't know if this specific song was used, but it is a reference that I think I meant to be thinking about. So he says, let's introduce you to the obsessives, or as we like to call them, the surfers. And now we're going to bring Katie into the room with these people. We see all of these people that they've hired, all of the surfers who are at their workstations. Some are working alone, some are in groups kind of huddled around each other. Joe says, every day we receive hundreds of emails from people asking us to add their websites to our index. Makes sense. That's a trend that's continued. Gordon says, plus we're constantly on the lookout for new sites to catalog. Joe says, when a surfer finds a site, they categorize it and add it to Comet's master list. Each group is responsible for growing the index and writing descriptions for the top 5 sites in each category. Gordon says, yeah, but the problem is that we started out with 5 main topics. As new sites pop up, categorizing them becomes more and more complicated. Katie's like, there's an ontological term for that. Gordon says, yeah, a shit show. And they both laugh. We're getting a ton of exposition here, right? Like, it works in the sense that they are it's basically an orientation for Katie on here's the lay of the land, here's what's happening. But we also need it because a little bit of time has elapsed and we need to know how they've been trying to solve the problems that they had identified at the start of the episode. We're going to start meeting some of these surfers. So Reggie, we're going to see Reggie. He says hi. Joe says, okay, let's start with entertainment. And he's going to introduce, this is Reggie from La Video. Reggie salutes her. Gordon says he impressed Joe with his vast knowledge of French New Wave, as well as the canon of John Candy. Reggie says, yeah, did you know that he played Cliff Murdoch, the announcer in Rookie of the Year, uncredited? This feels like a detail that there was a writer who just really, like somebody in the writer's room just really wanted this in here. Joe's like, really? Katie says, huh. Reggie says, yeah. Fun fact, all right? Reggie's full of them. Joe says, that's amazing. Gordon's like, really cool, Reggie. And so Joe's saying, see, enthusiasm feeds them. It's like, these are the animals and these are the peanuts we give them. Katie says, yeah. Joe's going to point to the next 2 people. He says, so this is Lorraine and Poe from Tower Records and City Lights, respectively. Lorraine's like, hey, yo. Katie says, hi. I don't remember City Lights, but I very well remember Tower Records. And that for sure is a deeply 90s thing for me. I remember just those stores were such like they just, you could go in, there was all kinds of music. If you wanted something obscure and you weren't sure how or where to find it, they had this little kiosk with information you could type in and it'd be like, do we have this thing at all? And here's maybe how you find it. And you could just spend hours just browsing through a record store like that. It's just that idea of like sort of like looking at cover art, feeling it. That's something that I think has gone away with music being available digitally. And also the other thing that's gone away is like with CDs, you would have like those CD booklets when you'd open up the CD case, the inside, most artists, they might put all of their song lyrics. They'd have them like really well designed little booklets. The cover art mattered a lot. So I don't know, it was sort of part of the surprise of seeing like this style. But anyway, Tower Records. Okay. Katie's going to say to Gordon, hey, where is your comedy geek? That section rocks. Another thumbs up moment for Katie. She doesn't even realize it. He's like, that's actually my daughter, Haley, who's part of the team when she's not at school. Nicely done, Katie. Joe says, regionals over here. You need a restaurant recommendation? These are your guys. Risa says, not just guys. Gordon, this is a little off-putting to me. Gordon puts his hands on her shoulders and sort of turns her swivel chair a little bit so she can face Joe and Katie. And he says, oh, Risa, we met on a bus. She launched into a list of restaurant ratings that would put Zagat's to shame. Risa's like, FYI, Zagat's has a new website, but the biz team scooped us. Mackie says, Zagat's is big business. It's international, not regional. You just know that everybody got the pronunciation of Zagat's wrong, and Reese has been policing this. I wonder if Gordon brought Risa in because they had flirty energy on the bus, or I mean, Gordon's single, right? So did they go on a date? Like the hands on the shoulders bit is very specific, and we would now put this into sexual harassment. So unless they have like a relationship of some sort that warrants this, like I don't think that Risa would just let this slide, of all people, unless maybe she had a thing for Gordon. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. All right. So Joe, Mackie has now spoken. So Joe says, that's Mackie from Gold's Gym. You wouldn't believe it, but this guy's got an MBA. Look, he's not just all muscles. What a way to describe these people in front of them. He was like, Well responded, Katie. Mackie says, marketing honcho. I told Golds to launch a website. And then the guy next to him, Clem, leans in. He says, and when they finally did, we scooped it up from regional. Woo! And then he and Mackie are going to sort of high five. It's not really a high five. It's like mid-level, right? What is that? Gordon says, guys, can we not? Katie says, well, you could cross-reference it. Joe's like, yes, do that. He stands, he keeps walking. He says, so you see our quandary. Yeah, business, sports. Katie says, I'm with you. Gordon says, this is our head coder, Ted. They walk over to a desk where there's a man hunched over who appears to be headless. We can't see his head because his body is covering it. He's asleep on his desk. Gordon's like, he manages the whole site for us. Ted is snoring. And then Jay comes over. He just seems like the guy who kind of is sort of the glue. He just seems to keep things running. Jay says, sorry to interrupt. You have a call from Michael Hausman at AOL. I'm wondering if Jay is an assistant to somebody. I'm not sure. So sorry to interrupt. You have a call from Michael Hausman at AOL. Gordon and Joe go to take it. Joe's like, feel free to work your magic, Katie. She says, yeah, I got it. So Joe and Gordon run up to the conference room to get on this call. Joe says, hey, Mike. Gordon says, Mike, it's Gordon. If you're calling to bust my balls about CalNect, you're a bit late. They've already busted into oblivion. It isn't actually that long after CalNect went away. It's been longer than 6 weeks, but how much longer? I don't know. Okay, so Mike is on the speakerphone. He's like, yeah, sorry to hear that. I wanted to let you know AOL is in the market for a search play. She says, we're listening. He sits down. Mike says, frankly, we're impressed by what you've got going on over there at Comet. Smart, lean. Gordon has walked over to the window to see what's happening in the main room, and he's just watching Katie as he's having this whole conversation. Mike's like, I don't want to be too forward, but are you guys entertaining acquisition offers? As Gordon is looking with like moon eyes, googly eyes at Katie. She's talking with Risa, and she gives him like a rock on gesture. And he's going to give it back to her, or it was this, might be this. I clearly have never given that gesture to anybody in my entire life. Okay. I've outed myself. So, I mean, it's interesting to have this call come in about AOL being interested to buy them out, because Gordon now has a real reason not to, like, he wants to work with Katie. He wants to pursue this thing, maybe, right? Like there's something here to pursue. I don't know, I think for sure. Seems like they're both kind of into this. So him pursuing a conversation like this with AOL would mean basically like this thing with Katie sort of dies on the vine. And Joe, where does Joe stand on this? You know, he wants to bring the people together. I feel like that's what he's all about, but I don't know. We'll see if his thoughts evolve on that. So as this scene is ending, we're going to get the song "Let Me Take You for a Ride," or we're going to get a song that says "Let Me Take You for a Ride." The music is going to continue. That was a pre-lap going into Donna searching Comet's comedy page, Haley's page, and she's looking at whatever Haley's put together here. She cracks up at the content. I love this scene. It's just this little, so much relies in many important scenes on Carrie Bichet's like nonverbal communication with us. So here she's like reading this competitor site. This is her daughter's page for comedy. She's just cracking up at something she's read here. She's really loving her daughter's page. And then she just like realizes, oh man, this is a great page and it's on my competitor's website. So she sort of sighs at how well her competitor is doing, like, man. And then we're going to see what this means for the Rover team. So we're going to get a pre-lap of Vera's voice as the Rover team is looking at Comet. It's fun to see everybody kind of looking at each other's sites here to just scope out the situation. Vera says, God, they've added editorial descriptions. Geez, that was fast. Boz says, how are they doing their algorithm? Cecil says, it's not an algorithm, it's people, like Soylent Green. Anyway, Boz says, this is like the second time I've made a Soylent Green reference on this podcast, and I don't know that I've made one ever outside of the podcast. So take that as you will. Boz says, well, why can't we do that? Elliot says, well, give me Series A. I'll hire 40 grunts to write blurbs. Tonya says, we're not ready for Series A. Don't jump the gun. Elliot, this team is also really frustrated. You know, Donna's got all that internal anger. She's trying to figure out how to channel it differently with her team. But then we find that Boz and Tonya have conflict between each other. And now we see the Rover team and they are just not operating at their peak. So like, it's just everything is a weak link here. Elliot is, once again, frequent user of Agek mugs. He's going to hand his Agek mug to Cecil to get him more coffee because Cecil's his assistant now or something. Cecil's like, what the? Vera's like, you sure you need more of that? Elliot says, it's the only thing keeping me alive. Yep. Tonya and Boz are going to leave after Cecil, who goes to get the coffee. Vera leans into Elliot. She's like, isn't it a weird coincidence that we launched just as Donna's ex-husband unveiled Comet? It's a good question, Vera. Bonus points for you. Elliot says, search was in the ether. We don't even know how much they talk to each other. I mean, Elliot's got that. There's some plausible deniability here. Vera's like, she just seems tweaked about the whole thing. Like she's got a bug up her ass. Sure does. The door opens. Donna enters in. I'm here to say, I think we all know that I don't often notice fashion. Donna enters in a most amazing jacket. My goodness, I'd have no idea how to describe this jacket. I would love to wear this jacket for a keynote. I don't even know if that's like my style, but it's so jaw-droppingly amazing. Somebody describe this jacket to me, please. Give me language to explain this fashion. I'm just, it's such a loss. Okay. Donna's like, all right, give me the update. I want specifics. She sits on a desk. She's going to be standing, like sort of Tonya and Boz are in front of her. They're standing around her. Tonya says, okay, Vera's been working on natural language queries, trying to make the computer understand how humans ask questions. Elliot's frustrated, and he is very clear about that for this whole impromptu meeting. He says, we only have one coder. Cecil's the best, but he's overworked. Cecil's like, Elliot. Elliot says, dude, it's true. It's not your fault, but if we could get him some help. Tonya says, he's essentially trying to refine the search algorithm and improve the crawler. He can't do both simultaneously. Cecil looks defeated and exhausted. He says, pick which horrible problem you want me to attack first. Donna hears this and she cocks her head a little. She's like, these folks are getting, just a little too bold. Now that she's sitting down in rooms and lowering her status, they're feeling awfully comfortable to, I don't know that they're mouthing off, but they're definitely like being bold, where I don't know that they would have been that way with Donna before. Boz is like, yeah, the truth is we could use a few more bodies. Our man here can do the heavy lifting, but he's going to need more support. Elliot's like, what we need is a Series A. It's like, here's his drum and he's still banging it. Anybody hear this? Tonya says, Elliot. Donna laughs. She says, you guys are not getting a Series A term sheet anytime soon. She leaves. Let's hear it for team morale. Find me one person on this team who's happy. Okay. Cam and Joe, they're going to scope out an Airstream. So Cam has bought this land that she broke down in front of. She needs something to put on this land, and they're looking at an Airstream. They're both wearing their respective long coats. It's winter. Cam is walking around the Airstream, touching it, loving it, being, inspired by it. Joe's sort of following her around it. There's a guy, Lenny, sitting outside in an armchair watching TV. It is winter. I thought, is this a garage sale? But it's not like there's like their yard is not full of stuff that they're selling. Lenny's just watching TV in the winter outside. Okay. Cam, and especially for an episode that we see a fair amount of rain, an armchair. Anyway, so Cam says, oh, this is exactly what I was hoping for. My friend Tori Lohman had an Airstream. We used to play in it. Joe's like, yeah, what would you play? She's like, Airstream. You know, the classic game everybody played. Lydia, the person who's selling this Airstream, wife to Lenny in the armchair, she says, so you're planning on a cross-country trip? Cam says, no, I just bought a piece of land and I need something over my head before I build something more permanent. She walks over to the Airstream to she wants to she touches the handle. She wants to open up the door. She's like, oh, Lydia says, yeah, where's the land? Cam says, just west of Bonnie Doon. Lydia says, oh, that's so pretty. Cam says, I know. Lydia says, well, my husband, Lenny, and I, we bought this old sweetheart for our honeymoon, and she's a real jewel. Cameron says, mm-hmm. Lydia says, how often do you get up there? Joe says, we've only been once. Kim says, but we're hoping to make it more often. Are we? Are we hoping to make it there more often? Joe says, yeah. I think we are not looking to make it there more often. Lydia says, okay, well, go inside. It's nice and cozy. The bed's pretty comfortable too. Wink, wink. Cam goes in. She's like, oh my God, it's the inside of an Airstream. Joe goes in. They're both so tall. It's moments like this where I realize how tall these two actors are. When they can barely fit inside of this Airstream. Cam is smiling. She's beaming. She's exuding. She's radiating. Joe exhales. It's like he's counting to himself to keep calm. Cam says, this is perfect. He's like, well, it's cozy. He opens the door. He looks into the bathroom with mild disgust. Mild, medium, extreme, not extreme. Cam says, so AOL, huh? He sits on the bed. He says, yep. She says, you really ready to be a company man again? Joe says, well, if the money is good enough, I might take the buyout, do something else. Cam's listening. She's like, you might. Joe says, yeah. He grabs her around the waist. He pulls her down onto the bed with him. She laughs. He says, Lydia said, try it out. So let's try it out. Cam's on top of him. She says, promise me that whatever the offer is, you'll consider it. She kind of exhales a little bit. She says, I kind of think you should take it. Joe's looking straight up at her. She's on top of him. He says, because our business model won't scale. What? Cam says, no, because then you can spend all that free time with me. Besides, I know you're all about the human touch, being flirty. She rubs noses with him. It's cute. It's cute with a real caveat for me, which I'll get to in a second. Joe says, does this long trailer mean you're moving out? Cam Cam laughs. She says, no, this is for us. We'll have all this room to just do whatever we want. He kisses her. They make out a little bit. He takes off her coat. He's like, all right, Lydia. They're role playing Lydia and Lenny now, I guess. She's like, hey, it worked for her and Lenny all these years. They're smiling at each other. Joe's like, you trying to make an honest Lenny out of me? She says, I'm trying to buy this here jewel and sweep you away to a magical land, using her Lydia's word. She says, I'm going to make an offer. She gets up excited. She leaves the Airstream. Let's talk about the scene. Again, do Cam and Joe want the same thing? I feel like these people, they sort of do this. This is like the best way I can just visually describe their relationship. Like they're moving forward and they come together for moments, but they're like, maybe they won't be there forever. And I feel like they had this great moment of connection in 309. And they had this amazing romantic moment of reconnection in 402. And even in 402, there were some things about them that felt really at odds with each other. The lesser of which for me was the spiritual conversation. Although I don't know if it would be lesser for them. Joe is saying, you know, like, he has these spiritual beliefs. Cam's like, I don't believe in spiritual beliefs. I think we as humans just have them to feel better about things. That was kind of a big one. But maybe the bigger one that we came up on in 402 was Joe saying, I know, I'm coming around to wanting kids. And Kim's like, yep, definitely don't. That was a big problem in my last relationship. And so even in 402, even in this really romantic episode where they're coming together and it feels really gratifying and really right, there are a couple things about it that feel like, ooh, what is this long-term prognosis for where they are? Like, are they on enough of the same page? And then I get to something like this. And Joe, to me, like, this offer comes in from AOL. Joe is currently working on a project that he has a large amount of say in over its direction. He's working with his best friend, Gordon. He's working with Haley, who he loves. They're putting together this team of people that I think he really feels invested in. And taking a buyout to be a company man, to me, doesn't sound like where Joe is in his life. Cam wants this outcome for what? Because she wants him to, like, she wants him to live an isolated life on this Airstream, on this plot of land in the middle of nowhere with her. Like, I don't know that she knows what she's looking for, but she wants him to be with her in that, I feel like. Maybe that would make her feel less alone. For Joe, imagine Cam came home one day and was like, bought a plot of land, want to buy an Airstream. Okay, you want to live there? Like, here she is living in his apartment. He was hoping she'd unpack her boxes there. She throws her boxes out. She buys another plot of land that she doesn't, I'm assuming she didn't discuss it with him because he asks this question, are you moving out? He's not planning to, like, he doesn't want to move out of his apartment. Like, what's happening with their communication here? And even I don't know that it's the communication that's the issue. In fact, like, I think it's, they can communicate about these things all they want, but she wants to live out on an Airstream in the middle of nowhere, not in his apartment. And he kind of wants to live in his apartment and not in an Airstream in the middle of nowhere. And he maybe wants to work at this company, and she kind of maybe doesn't want him to do that. And I don't know. It's not that their dynamic doesn't work. It's like, are they headed anywhere near the same direction at all? You know, like an episode like this makes me feel less like they are. And we're gonna have to see, like, are they gonna sort of like bring it back together again? We're going to hear the song Cannonball by the Breeders. The opening notes of that start, so familiar to me. That song, so, really something that I remember from the 90s. We're going to see a truck pulling the Airstream down that same dirt road that Cam was riding her motorcycle down earlier. She gets out of the truck. She's setting up the Airstream. She's washing the Airstream in her gum boots. She's setting up a fire pit, putting lawn chairs around it. Then she drinks a beer and some lawn chairs around it. And that's the scene, right? We have to get this Airstream set up as a place for Cam to live. Now we're going to go to Donna's place, Donna's house. Haley's sitting on the couch watching TV. I like that we're going to get two scenes that are echoes like of each other like this. There's going to be a scene later that echoes this scene, I should say. And we are going to see how much Haley is changing through these two scenes being in the same episode. So in this one, Haley's sitting on the couch. Donna comes in and Haley's confused. She's like, Mom, are we going? Mom? Donna comes in pajamas, drinking wine. Donna always has a glass in her hand these days, it seems like. Haley's like, you don't look ready. Donna says, I know, baby. I don't know if I'm up for it tonight. Haley's like, but you love girls' night out. Donna says, I do love it. I just thought maybe we could have girls' night in this time. She pours herself more wine. Like, I'm going to make it happen. Haley's like, is it work? It's awkward for her to bring it up. She's like, I know it's weird to talk about it. Donna says, no, honey, we can talk about whatever you want. And yeah, she comes over. She sits on the arm of another couch across from Haley. She says, we've been having some trouble. Haley's like, with Rover? Donna says, uh-huh. Haley says, well, I'm sure it'll be awesome. I mean, Cam said she liked it. Donna says, when did Cam say she liked Rover? She leans in. She kind of wants the scoop. Haley gets up like, ooh. So many danger zones all at one time for Haley. She's, I don't know, a couple months ago, she said the algorithm was clever. Donna lights up a little bit. She smiles, but she puts it back to Haley. Well played, Donna. Like, maybe feel the feeling that you have, let it wash over you for a second about Cam, and then put this back to your daughter, because that's, Donna's doing a good job about here. She says, what's really clever is your Richard Pryor blurb. 3,000 bonus points for Mom here. Haley chuckles. She's like, thanks. She grabs a glass from the cabinet. Donna says, the truth is, baby, you're kicking her ass. Haley chuckles again. She's pouring water for herself. She's like, well, you're right. Work is just so exhausting, so we should just relax. And I was like, how about we order takeout? Haley says, yeah, can we get Chinese? And I was like, yeah. She says, I love pot stickers. That's Haley saying that. Joni comes in, needs to spoil all the fun. She throws down her bag. Joni says, why are you wearing that? The pajamas, that is. Haley's like, well, we're going to order Chinese food. Joni says, oh, hella gross. She grabs the remote. She lays down on the couch Haley had been sitting on. She's going to change Haley's channel. She's going to take her couch and she's going to make her eat different food than what she wanted. Donna and Haley were watching all this from the kitchen. Joni's like, MSG makes me bloat. Just order pizza. Donna says, hey, Joni, your sister was watching cartoons. Haley's like, well, it's not just cartoons, Mom. Like, let's. Joni says, she doesn't mind. Joni looks back at Haley. She's like, right? Like, Joni's like, Haley and I, we have this relationship where I walk all over Haley, and she's fine with that, right? Haley, you're fine with me walking all over you. Am I right? Yeah. Haley says, yeah, watch whatever you want. And pizza's fine. Donna says, no, well, honey, what about pot stickers? Haley's like, I'm actually not that hungry. Wonder why. She's going to leave. Donna sighs and sips her wine. I mean, here's the thing. It takes two people to have this dynamic that Haley and Joni have, right? Joni walks all over Haley. Think what you will. Haley concedes at every turn. Think what you will. I've been there. It takes two people to have that relationship. And Haley's going to change that a little bit by the end of this. And that's what I love. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. So Donna sighs and sips her wine, and then we're going to see four other people in around the fire pit clinking their beers together. And this time we've got Gordon and Boz and Joe and Cam. They're at the fire pit at the Airstream site. Boz says, Cameron, how to, as they clink their beers. He laughs, they all drink. I honestly don't even know what that reference is. Cam thinks of something, probably the lights that maybe Boz helped her with. She runs to turn on those outdoor red lights that are strung up around the fire pit area. Gordon doesn't get Boz's joke. He's like, I don't get it. Boz wasn't one of my best. I don't get it either, Gordon. The electricity buzzes, the lights turn on. Cam says, ta-da! Boz says, hey. He's admiring the lights. Cam is beaming. The men are otherwise unimpressed. Gordon very flatly says, cool. Boz says, looks good. Joe says nothing. Cam loses her smile a bit. Which non-reaction felt the worst to her? She walks back to join them. She says, Joe, will you help me with the food? He puts down his beer. They go into the Airstream. He says, I'm sorry we're so late. The traffic was. She says, did the number come in? She wants to know about the sale. Joe says, 3 million. She says, well, that's pretty good. She's like trying to get food from their mini fridge. He says, we passed. It's encouraging to get the interest so early on. You know, we're going to try the VC route. A couple firms are poking around. She's still getting the food. She says, okay, hey, listen, are you sleeping over tonight, or do you have to take Gordon home now? Joe says, no, Boz is going to drive him back. So Joe drove Gordon from work. And once again, the communication between them, she had I think all of these ideas about what their first night in the Airstream would look like. And then Joe shows up with Gordon. And so she's thinking, are my plans going to happen here? He's saying, I'm not going to sell the company, but we're thinking about maybe some VC money, or they're not selling it to AOL, that is. So like, just, you know, these things that she's been planting are not bearing out the way she thought they would. So Joe's like, no, Boz is going to drive Gordon back. She's okay. He says, okay. She says, okay. Joe smiles and he comes over and he says, I wouldn't miss my first night in Lydia and Lenny's honeymoon hotbed. He kisses her. She's going to laugh. That's a cute moment between them. They have these cute moments. Tensions like seem to sort of roll off their backs right now. There's some communication issues happening as well. Boz and Gordon can hear Cam laughing from outside. Boz is going to chuckle. He's like, well, listen to them. Gordon's tending the fire. He's like, they seem to be doing all right. Boz says, well, as of tonight, I'm officially giving them the benefit of the doubt. So not everybody. So I guess people have an over-under on this relationship in terms of the main characters. Gordon's like, so now this is an awkward pairing of people to be left tending to the campfire, right? Last Gordon heard from Boz, I think, was Boz coming in and begging for money and Gordon rejecting it. So Gordon says, how are you doing? Boz says, well, Rover's coming along. Gordon's like, yeah, and about the other thing. Boz says, yeah, well, I'm happy to report I'm digging myself out of that particular hole. Probably sounded a lot worse than it was. Gordon, I didn't mean to come at you like that, and I feel shitty about the whole thing. Boz is not necessarily, he's digging himself out, but he is not dug out. So this is still a problem. He still hasn't told Diane about it. But, Boz is trying to sort of like clear the air with Gordon here. So he's, making it sound like not an issue anymore. Gordon's like, oh, Boz, come on, don't sweat it. Boz says, well, I heard AOL is going to make you an offer. He's adjusting his hat, maybe some sort of a tell. He says, are you going to take it? Gordon says, now, how did you hear about that? Boz is like, Cam. He says, oh, yeah, right. Well, turns out they lowballed the hell out of us at 3 mil. They're in a buying frenzy right now. Me and Joe want to play this thing out. So Boz says, yeah. So Boz has come away with some important information here. He's got a number on this. Now, a little bit later, Cam and Joe are also sitting around the fire. So we're just going to get like a quick cut to Cam and Joe are back outside with them. There was more drinks out. They're all laughing. They're a little tipsy. Gordon's saying, so when did you go all Hell's Angels on us? Kim's like, oh, come on. It was a baby Honda. It was technically a dirt bike, a thing of the past. Gordon's like, more like a space bike. Boz cackles at that. He's like, a space bike. Cam says, shut up. Anyway, I don't have one anymore. I drive a truck now. So Joe's like, yeah, a space truck. Gordon cackles. Boz is laughing. Cam laughs at that. They're all tipsy. Boz is like, space truck. Kim says, you guys want another beer? She's grabbing Boz. She says, let's all have one more. Boz says, no, some of us got to drive. Cam says, oh, come on, Gordon, you don't have to drive. She holds out a beer for him. He's like, I wish. She says, come on. He says, but I'm beat. Shall we, Boz? So Boz says, I think we're going to roll. They're starting to get up to go. Everybody's, hugging, shaking hands, saying goodbye. Gordon thanks Joe for the lift out. Cam's going to shout back to Boz as Gordon and Boz are walking away. She said, thanks for the help with the lights. Joe has already gone into the Airstream. She's going to follow him in as Boz drives away. Phase 2 of the night has begun for Cam. Nope, it's over. Joe is asleep in the bed. He hit the bed. He's face up, looking at the ceiling. No, he's not. He's asleep, snoring. She's like, Joe? Yeah, whatever she wanted to happen that night, maybe she wanted to christen the place. This is anticlimactic. He's asleep. First night in the Airstream equals just asleep. Cam is not ready to go to sleep, and he's also fully taking up the bed. So she goes outside. She sits back in the lawn chair that she was in before, but now she is alone. She opens up a beer, and she just sits there very sadly looking at the fire. She looks lonely. She sort of breathes in. I feel like, Cam at this Airstream site, most of her time will be spent sitting in this lawn chair alone with the ghosts of all these other people who used to be in these chairs next to her. Like you can almost see the people who were absent from the chairs that just left the party. It's just, I don't know. Cam looks so lonely. Cam often spends time alone. Cam often does her best work alone. We've seen her be alone a lot, but we've often seen her be alone and productive. And here she doesn't have a thing she's doing. And so she just looks sad. And I wonder if she wasn't always busy in season 1 or season 2 when she was alone, if she just had time to think, would she have been this sad then too? Maybe. Maybe Cam throwing herself into work is in its way a coping mechanism too. Anyway, we're going to get title card of Bomb 2 months later. Tonya and Boz are having lunch together at a Japanese restaurant, which feels very out of Tanya's comfort zone. Boz is telling the server, hey, this girl here, this Tonya is much nicer than that Harding girl. Tonya Harding, also spelled differently. Tonya says, my name has been forever sullied by a man named Galuli. I'm going to say my thoughts here about this a little bit later. Boz says, hey, let's get a little adventurous, shall we? Let's try some uni. The server agrees. She goes to get the uni. Boz says, yes, let's do that. Tonya says, I wanted to talk to you about Cecil. They're eating shrimp. She says he's still having trouble with whole pages. He's had a month. Maybe he's not the guy. Boz is like, well, it's going to be a little hard to get rid of him. He's a founding member of the team, CTO and all. So the new kid's helping him out with the grunt work, but Cecil still can't handle the programming challenge. So they've got somebody, they have hired one person to support Cecil. We haven't named that person, but the rover team has been added to. I think Boz is very well aware of the drama that can come from trying to oust a founder. He's been down this road. Tonya perhaps has not. And Boz is not wrong to caution her about that. I mean, look what he's been living all these years. Look what he's had a front row seat to. So, so this is the conversation, right? The server brings another dish, says enjoy. Boz is like, oh, you're gonna want to try this, dude. Yeah, he puts it on a plate with his fingers. This isn't food that I eat either, so I don't really know what all of this is, but she looks grossed out by it, and maybe by the fact that Boz was touching it with his fingers, maybe both. But I think definitely by the food itself. And so she like goes to grab it with chopsticks, but she's not used to using chopsticks, and she doesn't really want to eat this. And she goes to pick it up and goes to eat it, and it kind of falls off of the chopsticks. And that's a perfectly okay outcome, frankly, for her. He's like, yeah, this is some old Japanese soul food. You're gonna like it. She's like, Boss says, I wanted to ask you about something too. I heard that AOL is interested in a search play. It might be a way out of this whole mess. Tonya puts down her chopsticks. She's looking at him. Now, we know now, by the end of this episode, we know that Tonya already knows why he's saying this. Tonya knows that Boz is having financial trouble and that he needs to sell this company. Boz says, look, I'll be the first to admit that I don't know the ins and outs of the code, but when it comes to buying and selling companies, you could say that's my bailiwick. Tonya says, how much do you think we could get? Boz says, my man says upwards of 3 million. I do think that if Tonya heard a good number here, she might listen to that. But I think she hears this and she knows this is desperation, not a good sale. Tonya says, okay, well, we'd have to pay off the angel investors. Boz is like, yeah, we would do all right. We do all right, about 400K a piece. Tonya says, but the team, Boz says, the team they split almost 1 million in cash. Now that's pretty good for a bunch of young upstarts. Tanya's like, but there's 3 of them. Boz says, no, I know. She says, I just don't think. Boz says, look, it's nothing to sneeze at. It's a win for you. It sets you up great for your next thing. Besides, the sad truth is anyone does a search with us leaves underwhelmed. The top search on Rover is sex. The second most popular search is Comet. She's considering that. She smiles, but it's sort of an appeasing smile because we're about to see what she's really thinking. He's just said this line, top search is sex, second most popular search is Comet. We hear him repeat this line, and this time we've transported, we're back in Donna's office. Donna once again is sitting behind her desk. Tonya and Boz are standing on the other side of it like they were at the start of the episode. Again, we see these echoes of moments throughout this episode. Boz is saying the most popular word being searched on Rover is sex. The second most popular word is Comet. You should get a call in the next day. Expect the offer to be around $3 million. Tanya's not even looking at him. Tonya is seated. She says, can I assume that Boz speaks for both of you? She's looking at Tonya. She's trying to assess this landscape. Tonya looks at Boz and she's about to just throw him in the bus. She says, Boz, you have a lot of wisdom when it comes to sales, but we can't get out now. We have a winning play here. Our algorithm-based system has a half dozen copycats. Comet doesn't. Why? Because web growth is projected to double by the end of this year, triple by the close of 95. Boz says the competition is exactly the reason to get out now. We don't have the damn right programmer. They're both kind of using each other's arguments from the lunch. They both have sort of like scoped each other's viewpoints out. It's kind of interesting. Tonya says to Donna, you said we don't make small plays. We take big swings. So she's quoting Donna, I guess. Donna's like, tongue is in her cheek. She's like, she's looking at all this. She's kind of frustrated at what she's seeing. Tonya says, what I know in my gut is that search is poised to be $1 billion business. Donna considers all this. They're waiting for her response. Donna looks at Boz first. She says, I don't care who you run into on the golf course. You don't discuss my assets with anyone but me. If the path to victory requires a change in the Rover leadership, we can discuss that. But in the meantime, have some grit. Then Donna turns to Tonya, and she says, I told you to come in here and present a united front. Don't come whining to the boss. This is 101 bullshit. Do better, both of you. And when you walk out that door, I want to see you head in the same damn direction. Nodding to the fact that when we saw this sort of scene earlier, they left the office and they immediately split apart. Boz is going to scratch his beard like you betrayer. He looks at Tonya. She looks at him like, yeah, what now? They leave the room. They do walk in the same direction. Tonya is just charging forward. Boz is following her. He says, thanks for having my back in there. She says, you owe $326,000 to First National Bank. Whoa, that's a lot of money. Boz says, hey, Tonya says, I've known since November. You've been running off bank paperwork in the copy room like it's your home office. They're having this conversation. They're doing sort of a walk and talk through a busy office hallway. She's just saying all this stuff. She says, you missed a sheet. Boz touches her arm. He says, hey, wait a minute. She backs away from his touch and she says, hey, listen, I see what you're up to. You want to unload Rover to the first buyer so you can get a quick windfall. Boz says, oh, but you, Tonya stops him. She says, the long game, Series A, won't solve your problem. I haven't breathed a word about this, and I'm not going to because I have your back. I just wish you had ours. She walks away and she leaves him stewing. Ugh. Imagine being Tonya here. Like, Donna offered Tonya this job alone, right? And Donna spoke too soon, and her male partner said, she needs a man. He didn't say that exactly, but they said she needs a white man. So Tonya now has this promotion, but sort of has it halfway where she has to do this job with Boz, who is the partner to Diane, like the romantic partner to Diane. Tonya has done her research. She knows Boz is in financial trouble, but she can't say anything about that because of Diane and because Donna is close with Diane. And so, like, what a sticky position Tonya has been in. She probably resents this. And, like, at least this is on the table between Boz and Tonya now. All right, we're going to hear a pre-lap of a voice because we're going to get to the weekly website indexing contest at Comet. But first, we're just going to hear the sounds of it and not know what it is. So we've got a man saying, dude's got one. And we're going to see a group of people at Comet cheering, wooga. Haley sighs, that's the opposing team. We're going to go into the conference room where Joe and Gordon are having a meeting with, I guess, one of the venture capital firms. A guy named Davis is in there with them. He says, seriously, guys, Gladwell Bristol is the perfect fit. Gordon's nodding a little bit. Joe smiles. Somebody outside shouts, got one. Another team says, yay, us. That's the pot stickers. Davis is looking at what's happening outside because there's a lot of noise coming from outside. He says, what's up? Joe gives us some exposition we need. He says, it's our weekly website indexing contest. The team with the most sites by the end of Friday wins. We've got people shouting outside, go, go, go. Katie is going to come into the conference room to get Gordon and Joe's attention. She says, hey, 2-minute warning. Gordon's like, we're close. Katie says, neck and neck. Haley is in the mix. So Katie is going to leave the room. We're going to see Jay walking past carrying a surfboard. Joe is saying we should get down there. Gordon and Joe and Davis all go downstairs to join the party. We see this contest happening. We're going to see a leaderboard. First of all, here are all the names on the leaderboard. These are the team names. We've got Ample Vegetation, the Courtney Lovers. I'm thinking that's a Courtney Love group, fan group. Feel the Burn. Jane Fonda, Feel the Burn. There's the reference we need, but there's more with that coming. Pot Stickers, which we've heard before in this episode. Mrs. Doubtfire, In Yo Face, and the Velveteen Yarmulkes. I think that's all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So there's 7. Joe explains, okay, so we used to cluster groups by topic, but our chief ontologist found that it boosted productivity to share the info between the teams So she put the teams into 7 master groups. This, when you think about basically every other grouping of characters here, none of them seem to be communicating as well as this Comet team is right now. They've actually got a structured system for open communication between them, a system that nobody else seems to have, and none of them are the better for it. But see how fun it is when you communicate. Anyway, so somebody from Feel the Burns like got one, and that team goes auga. So Feel the Burns cheer is auga. And Katie's saying, okay, all right. Jay is updating the scores. He says, all right, they're inching up. Come on, Mrs. Doubtfire, you know what's at stake. Research the web like it's 1989. The founding of it all. Reggie says, I got one. He is on the pot stickers. Their cheer is yay us. We see Haley cheer. We see Joe cheer. Joe and Gordon are sort of cheering for everybody. Katie's like, yes, step it up, burners. Make Fonda proud. Yep. I like that she's calling them burners, and I like that this is a very clear Jane Fonda reference. So it's all come together for me by this point in my deep dive. I felt very satisfied with myself. Feel the Burn says, dudes got one. The whole team says, ooga. Reggie stands, he's like, it's on, burners. Haley's working away. Davis is like, they seem fired up. What's the grand prize? Olympic gold? Oh, don't you want to know, Davis? It's better. Which Joe says it's better. He says, okay, we don't have much time. We're almost there. We're almost going to find out who the victor is. Pot stickers get one. Yay, us. He's like, it's so close. Feel the Burn gets one. Auga, it's tied, neck and neck between Feel the Burn and pot stickers. Katie's hyping people up. She's like, go, go, go. Haley points. She says, I just logged a Rosie O'Donnell site. And everybody starts cheering. Little Haley did it. The pot stickers win by 1 because of Haley's Rosie O'Donnell site. Katie brings the surfboard over. Reggie and Lorraine go to lift Haley, and she won't let them. Katie is going to write pot stickers on the surfboard as the week 4 winners. She hands the surfboard to Reggie. She says, surfboard. And then she hands a ceremonial whipped cream pie to Haley, who I guess has been named the MVP. Haley says, thank you very much. Hey, Dad, come over here. So what's the prize for winning the weekly website indexing contest, you ask? Well, it is getting your name on the surfboard, but if you're the MVP, it means you also get to pie one of the founders in the face. So Gordon turns to Joe. He's like, are you sure it's not your turn? Joe's like, definitely not. Gordon's going to take off his button-down shirt. He's like, all right. Clapping starts. Everybody's cheering. Haley says, you ready? And they're all clapping rhythmically. And then she pies him in the face. Everybody celebrates. It's so good. First of all, this scene, so much energy. This is the same space that Mutiny was in season 3. And remember what it felt like then? It felt like a dark room with dust particles in the air with like almost noir lighting. And like, it felt like the team was really spread apart in that space. This space feels active and lit up and like, just like very energized, and it's the same room. It's just amazing. All of the different departments that must have come into play to make this same space have such a different feeling to it. This feels like it must have been a very chaotic scene to try to get, because there's a lot happening. There's a lot of overlapping conversation. There's a lot of showing us different groupings of people, but there's so many people in the room. I feel like this, first of all, this must have taken forever to shoot and to edit, because if they're all talking, and they're all doing things that are important that we have to pick up on, how do you make it match? I don't know. like in a club scene, in a dancing scene, a lot of the time there won't be music on at all so that you can hear the people who need to talk and people are just sort of going through the motions without distracting too much. But here, it actually does feel like there needs to be people all interacting in this space at the same time. So, gosh, what a challenge that must have presented. The other thing that I wanted to share here, let's talk about pieing people in the face, okay? Personal story. So I was a gymnast from the ages of 4 to 22. And when I was in, like, let's say middle school and high school, I would go to gymnastics camp every summer. In the early days, I would go for 1 week, and then it was a 2 week camp. So after a couple of years of that, I hated leaving when everybody else was staying. So I would save up any money that I made the whole year, and I would pay. I would say I'm paying for my own second week. And so I would do 2 weeks of camp most years, and it was a camp that, like, my whole gym, like, there were some camps where different people would go. It was very commercial, like a lot of people from different gyms would mix. The camp that I went to was it called National Gymnastics Training Center? I think it was in upstate New York. And there were just a bunch of people, like gym owners from different states, who were really good friends, who had created this camp together. They found a place to have it. And so, like, there were a handful of gyms that would send all their people there. So most of the people who were at this camp came from a handful of, like, half a dozen different gyms. And we would all sort of mix and merge. And, you would get to see those people every, couple weeks every year. Anyway, there were all different activities that we used to do. We had, like, skit night. We had all these different things, like a dance contest. And I think it was Friday, at the end of each week, there was a handstand contest. And they would do this in a couple different rounds, because there were different levels of gymnasts that were broken up into how we would rotate through the apparatus each day. So each grouping at, each level would do their own internal handstand competition. We would all watch and cheer for each other. And, we'd start with the lowest level girls and we'd go up to the highest level girls. And then every group would have a winner. And at the end, all of the winners would do one final handstand contest. And whoever won that got to pie any coach of their choice or any counselor of their choice in the face. So the counselors couldn't participate. So I have never admitted this to anybody, but I'm telling you, all of you now, I used to train for this. I never told anybody how hard I trained for this. Every single night, even after practice, even after 3 hours of gymnastics practice, I would go home before I went to bed. In my bedroom, I would hold handstands, 2 handstands for as long as I could, back to back. I was comfortably over 5 minutes for holding handstands. And I would do it, like, I kid you not, every single night. I would have a little watch in front of me counting it up, and I would just put some music on. I would hold a handstand, the blood rushed my head, and come down, do it again. I won this contest twice. I'm telling you, the hard work pays off. The first time, let's see, I'm trying to remember which time was which. I can't remember which was my first time and which was my second, but one time I was like, can I choose a counselor? And somebody said, sure, why not? And people usually didn't, but I chose a counselor, and I pied my friend Melissa, her name was also Melissa, in the face. And that was amazing. Okay. What a delight. The other time that I won, I said, can I pick 2 coaches? Because I had a team of coaches, Henry and Jose. And so I was like, can I pie Henry and Jose? And somebody said, yeah, because they wanted to see Henry and Jose pied. So I got 2 whipped cream pies, and I gave them the old smash. And then I kind of rubbed it in their faces a little bit. And I watched 2 of my coaches just be, 1 second there was a face, and the next second there was just whipped cream. I am very keenly aware of the great delight that there is to pieing somebody in the face. And I'm here to tell you, I spent a lot of my life working for this. So I can appreciate what a formative moment this might have been for Haley. just makes me so happy to think about this story. I didn't even, when I got to this episode on this rewatch, I was like, oh, I can tell the story about the pieing of the face. Anyway, so yeah, that's me. But yeah, what a high energy scene. My gosh, this space. Want to talk about a totally different feeling scene? Let's go to, it's a dark and stormy night. Raining outside, sight of the Airstream. There's the Airstream, rain on the Airstream. A chair falls over in the wind. Cam was just in the shower and she comes out and the faucet is leaking. And her best solution for that is to just keep slamming it until it stops leaking, except that's not the result. She makes it worse. She knocks something loose in the Airstream. She's slamming it. She's cursing at it. She's grunting. She's groaning. The whole Airstream falls off of its prop and it rolls backward until something stops it. A tree stump? I don't know what stopped it. She gets out of the Airstream. She's in her underwear and a shirt. She pulls off, which is a very interesting choice of attire for them to put her in for this scene. She's so there are a lot of problems right now. Like, she gets out of this Airstream, she jumps into the mud, she's got her gumboots on, she goes around the back. For whatever reason, she pulls off the back panel and just sewage spills out. I don't know why she did that. What did she think that was going to solve? What problem did she think that was going to solve? She hates that. I think we all would. She walks back around to the front. She tries to spin a lever. Again, I don't know what any of these things do. I'm just describing things. It breaks off. So now this is broken. And with it, she flings herself back into the mud, falls back onto the mud. Now she's dirty. She screams and throws a lawn chair. And the song, meanwhile, we're hearing that girl thinks she's queen of the neighborhood. She's got the hottest trike in town, which I thought was a funny nod. I like this song choice just for that lyric. That girl, she holds up her head so high, I think I want to be her best friend. Yeah, rebel girl. So, yep, there we go. That is a very different vibe from what's happening at Comet. But now let's go to another scene where we're going to get an echo of something we saw earlier. So we're going to get Donna drinking wine at home because she's always drinking, doing a spreadsheet in the main room. Haley comes in with a surfboard because she just won this contest. She's had a great day. Joni is lying on the couch watching TV. Haley is a transformed person at this point. She's going to put down her surfboard. She's going to grab the remote from Joni. Joni's like, what are you doing? Haley won't let Joni take it back. She says, skating is coming on. It's Tonya and Nancy and all of America's watching. So I want to see what happens. Very assertive. Joni is like, I was watching Real World, and it's the episode where David gets kicked off for pulling the sheets off of Tammy. Haley's like, oh my God, who cares? It's not even real. I was like, girls, can you please? And I said, I read something online that said they generate all the drama, kind of like you. Joni smiles at this because Haley has never pushed back on Joni, maybe in her entire life. And now she's like grabbing the remote, she's changing the channel. Joni smiles at this assertive Haley, and then she's looking at the surfboard. She's like, what is that? It says the Golden Surfboard Award at the top. She says, it's a golden surfboard. Joni says, well, why do you have that? Donna turns around from her workstation. She stands, she walks over. She's like, honey, where did you get that? And I says, well, it's from Comet. And I know it's weird to have a Comet trophy when you're working so hard on Rover. So I was like, no. Joni is fully amused at this point. She's like, why does it say pot stickers? Haley says, because I won it. Donna's amused. She's looking at Joni. Who is this girl? They're both happy to see this Haley. Haley's like, Reza was doing a write-up for the Benihana website, and I told her that I love pot stickers. So she named our team Pot Stickers, and today we won. And we kicked Feel the Burns' ass, and everyone cheered, and they played this crazy surfer music, and I got to throw this ceremonial pie in Dad's face. Joni Smosh was like, what? I was like, I know, it was amazing. Donna is feeling complete joy. Like, I mean, I can't even remember seeing Donna like this season. She's just laughing. She's like so happy to see her daughter coming into her own like this. Like, what a day Haley's had. But has Haley ever been like this after a good day? Haley's like, okay, Nancy's about to warm up. You're my sister, and I know deep in your heart you want to watch this major cultural event and eat ice cream and not just smoke disgusting cigarettes. Jonah's like, shut up. Haley's like, and scowl at everybody. Donna's like, whoa. Haley says, come on, Mom, come on. Donna shakes her head. She's so happy to see all this. They all go, they sit on the couch together. They put the surfboard across them, like all three across them, and they use it as a table for the popcorn that Joni had. And Joni's like, I wish I could throw a pie in Dad's face. And I was like, yeah, you and me both. That's a nice little button on the scene. But yeah, I mean, what a transformation. Not only, like, I love that this is paired with a scene earlier in this episode where Joni comes in, she changes Haley's channel, she changes Haley's food choice. Haley just leaves and doesn't even interact with her family after that. And here, Haley pushes back and gets the best possible result for it. Like, it's such a novel thing that Joni's like kind of excited to see the pushback, and Donna just loves to see this version of Haley emerging. And now the reward is they all get to spend this time together on the couch. It kind of makes me think about how, in season 3, when Donna went off to Diane's her house in the winery area, or vineyard. She was a vineyard, I think, actually. Donna has that whole hallucination of the things she wanted to say to Cam and the reconciliation that they would have, but she never actually did say those things. And so we get this, like, what Donna wishes she could say sequence, and the outcome Donna wishes she could have. And she never actually was brave enough to have that conversation. And here Haley comes in, and she's on the high from being the MVP for this contest. She just comes in and she says the things, and she gets a good outcome. I mean, once again, I think we're seeing through the lens of the next generation, like, what is the potential for the future? So yeah, I mean, it's really fun to see. And not for nothing, if Joni missed the thing that she wanted to see on TV, she just missed it forever. Like, it was actually much higher stakes than it seems. Like, if you think about it now from a standpoint of like recording stuff that happened on TV, or having it recorded so you could come back to it later. If you didn't get to it live, then you didn't get to it unless they showed a rerun. So, and if you had an outage, or if you had static, or if you had a storm and like the signal wasn't coming through, sorry, you missed it. Not coming around again. So, like, it's kind of a big deal if Joni really wanted to see this. This was her chance, but Haley's doesn't want to miss her thing either. Let's go to Joe's apartment because more people want to watch Tonya and Nancy. So some of the Comet team is hanging out. We've got Reggie, we've got Risa, Mackie, Katie, Gordon, and Joe. They're all like, they've clearly picked their sides here. It's become this, again, it's a cultural event. So they're all like joining around the TV. They're drinking beers. Gordon and Katie are sitting next to each other. Gordon brings a beer to Katie. He's like, what did I miss? She's rooting for Nancy. Joe's asking, how fast do you think they're going? Gordon turns to Katie. He says, can you see okay over him? He's sitting below her though. She says, yeah, I've got a perfect view of the crust of Cool Whip behind your ear. Gordon tries to feel it. He's like, wait, what? She gets a napkin and she goes to wipe it off of his ear, physical contact. I got it. Don't worry about it. Let me touch you. So we're going to get voices from the room like, who's going to top that? This is good. Like, now I'm even more nervous. They're all rooting for different people. Cam is going to come in for this. Now, I feel like I need to interject here about the timeline. I'm getting really frustrated with the timeline of season 4. So I had said that I have like 3 issues with the writing moments in this show. We've talked about who beat down the beat it down on Joe. We've talked about that at length. I've mentioned that I have the issue with in season 3 where we have the whole Cam reading the private chat and then going to meet the guy to get the joystick, and he's like, wait, you didn't, how did you know that my son died? That was in a private chat. How did you see that? I always thought there would be more coming from that. I've talked about those at length. And then I thought that my 3rd issue was with the Godzilla Mothra sequence in the opening of season 4, because that scene has a contradiction in it. It's like, where are we in terms of timing? But the more we dissect the timing elements of season 4, the more problems I'm finding. So I'm going to put an overarching umbrella under my issue number 3, which is timing of season 4. There are certain things that happened at a certain time. And the problem is, when they started season 4, they never said exactly what the month and year was. They asked us to guess, and they gave us clues. And so we have been working on it. We've been looking into the clues and finding out what time things happened in real life, and then using that to inform us on when we are. And we're having some issues because of that. So if you ignore the Godzilla Mothra thing and you go with the rest of the timeline for the opening montage at the start of 401, a bunch of great commenters here have landed on maybe November 93 as where that opening montage ended. And one of the reasons we got there was that the live stream of the coffee pot was sourced as a November 93 event. So for a bunch of reasons, we landed November 93. Cam and Joe's long phone call, 402. Cam asked Joe, tell me what's happened in the world since I've been gone. And one of the things Joe mentions is don't ask, don't tell, which is a December 93 that was activated in December 93. Activated isn't the right word. Released, passed, the bill was passed in 93, December. Tonya and Nancy, the Lillehammer Olympics happened in mid-February of 94. That is a very firm date, mid-February 94. But in this episode, we had 6 weeks have passed, and then we had 2 months have passed. And this is 404. So if 403 happened sometime after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was passed in December 93, and we're not talking about the holidays. We kind of thought we were in 94 at that point, but let's say we're not. Let's say we're in December 93. And let's say, are we saying no time elapsed whatsoever in 403, even though we've sold a company? Time has gone by in order to sell Calnect. So it doesn't feel right to say that no time went by in 403. And here we are in 404, and 3.5 months have gone by. How are we in February, mid-February 94? Okay, so that's my concern here. I literally don't know that there is an actual way to reconcile these details. I don't know that this is a matter of saying, okay, well, if you do it this way, it works. They're giving us specific cultural moments. And then they gave us 6 weeks have passed and 2 months have passed. And it doesn't line up. And you might be saying, Melissa, you're driving yourself bananas for no reason at all. But I'm here to tell you, I'm doing a deep dive, guys. Like and they never, in season 2, they give us like a month and year at the bottom of our screens for us to go off of, when we had that time jump. They could have done something like that, but instead they gave us clues, and I don't like the result. I'm sorry. I love that they're giving us cultural moments. I really do, but make it make sense in terms of timing, please. There might have been easy fixes for this, Anyway, so, okay. That's my thoughts on that. Cam comes in. Cam comes home. She's had this horrendously awful night at the Airstream. She's, drove the truck all the way back to get to Joe's place. And she has no idea that Joe's going to have people over. Maybe Joe didn't tell her. Maybe Joe didn't even invite her. Maybe this is something that people got excited about and he offered up his place and didn't tell Cam, or Cam was too busy to pick up the phone. I don't know. But Cam comes over and she doesn't really seem to expect other people to be there, but there's a party happening at Joe's. And so Joe's like, oh, hey, I didn't know you were coming home. You want to join us? She's like, now we've got the announcer. They're watching figure skating. He's like, now this first jump is a triple flip. Oh, she doubles. Cam is just shaking her head. She turns. She's like, I got to take a shower. She's definitely being a buzzkill, and Joe goes after her. He leaves the party. He goes to her. He says, what happened? She says, I'm sorry. I'll tell you later. I didn't mean to barge in. He says, no. I wanted to introduce you to everybody. Katie's going to shout from the next room. Katie is trying to be inclusive. I think that's probably a strength of Katie's. Katie comes in after the rest of the people on the Comet team as a chief ontologist to sort of group the team together. And she's, a weekly website indexing contest comes out of that. She's like really good at creating a team spirit. And so Cam comes in looking like a spoil sport, to be honest. And Katie's trying to include her. She says, we need a tiebreaker. Are you team Nancy or team Tonya? Cam shakes her head at Joe. She's confused. She hasn't even heard of any of this. She's like, are those skater people? Joe doesn't even know what to say. Everybody's cheering from the other room. She's just like, I'm just going to go to bed. Joe looks down. He turns around. He goes back to the party. He does not she's going to shower. She's going to go to bed. He's going to let her do her thing and just sleep it off. He's going to go back to the party. She looks back and watches him leave, and she walks into the bedroom alone. Probably not what she was hoping for when she went over to his place to begin with. Again, this makes me so nervous for Joe. Cam, all is not well in Cam's world here. And I feel like Cam is, Cam is putting a real damper on some things. I mean, and that she has something she needs to deal with here. And I feel like this is the kind of relationship where Joe could end up walking on eggshells around her in a way that's really, really unhealthy. I've seen it happen. I've been there. Especially if it's on the other side of a mental illness. It's very, very hard to manage that. And it's hard to be yourself within the context of that. It's hard to be a healthy person in the context of a relationship where you're dealing with somebody's challenges and problems. And I think he's trying to figure out what this looks like for him. And his choice here is to go back to a party that he was having. And she's going to do her thing. And she's going to hate that. She came there for support. She came there for a shower and a bed, but she came there probably for support from Joe also. And she's not getting that right now because he went back to the party, and maybe he needs that. I don't know. I can sort of feel this moment in their relationship, and it doesn't feel great to me. All right. Now we're going to see next day, Boz is fixing the sink in the Airstream. He's like, next time you hear a drip, just maybe try a gentler approach. She chuckles, she groans, she's like, I know how this looks, like I'm having some pathetic early midlife crisis. Got the bike, the truck, the trailer. He laughs. He says, no, on the contrary, actually, you took a risk. You got out of your comfort zone. I'm proud of you. She says, right, my new home got stuck in the mud. He says, well, it happens to the best of us. There's no shame in asking for a little help now and again. He probably could use this advice himself right now, to be honest. There he is taking care of her, but he's kind of stuck in the mud too right now. Cam says, how do you know how to do all this anyway? You come from a long line of trailer folk. Boz is going to chuckle. He says, well, truly, that ain't far off. He hands her a flashlight. He says, why don't you keep this? You never know when it will come in handy. She says, do you want a drink? Please, I want to be around a human. He says, no, I'm good, but you could run out to my truck and on my seat, there's a tool bag. Grab me the plumber's putty, little can. She says, okay. She goes to do that. She opens the door of his truck. She doesn't see it in the bag. Then she goes out to the bed of the truck. She finds like a box inside. She's looking for it there. She doesn't see it, but she does see the compass box with the compass in it. Why would this not be on the boat? So she goes back into the Airstream and she raises that issue with him. She comes back in empty-handed. She says, I couldn't find it. Hey, how's your boat? He knows that she knows. They stare at each other and he just exhales. He's finally going to be able to sort of tell somebody what's really happening for him right now. So we're going to cut to the two of them sitting around chairs at the fire pit. This is what the fire pit was for people to be sitting in the chairs, not just Cam. He says, well, I liquidated whatever I could, zeroed out my IRA. I was ready to auction off all the furniture, but I thought Diane might notice if her antique buffet turned up missing. Cam's trying to be supportive. She says it could work out. Rover might succeed. No, I looked at it a couple of months ago. It wasn't there yet, but I liked the model. And that's her saying a lot. I mean, this is Donna's project, and Cam is saying nice things about it, or at least hopeful things about it. Boz says, yeah, but our programmer's been banging his head against the wall for months trying to refine the algorithm, and Donna won't sell it. I recognize the signs. This thing is going to die on the vine. I mean, we're screwed. We're so screwed. The light from Screwed going to take 1,000 years to reach us. Cam's like, wait, how screwed are you? And, she says it gently, but they kind of laugh there. He says, we don't got the leadership. We don't got that algorithm. We don't got the talent. In a word, darling, we don't got you. Cam says, what part is he stuck on? Their coder. She wants to help him. Her heart is bleeding for him. She wants to help. And then we're going to see the result of that in a minute, won't we? So first we're going to go to the Comet office. There's beautiful golden hour light that's coming in through the window. We've got Joe and Gordon playing pool. Joe, this is such a nice, like, Gordon and Joe being buddies. What a healthy partnership they seem to have here. Joe says, I'm just saying, Dr. Katie Herman gives you a lot of ontological attention. He shoots. Gordon's like, yeah, she's friendly. Oh, nice scratch. Now it's Gordon's turn. Joe says, well, she's not friendly with me. Gordon says, yeah, well, how are things with you and Dr. Cameron Howe? Must be pretty snug out there in that Airstream, like two giants living in a thimble. He takes a shot. He scratches. He's like, oh, so close. I like how he scratches, but there's this delay of great expectation about where the shot is going to go. And then he's like, nope, didn't go anywhere. Joe says, excellent try. So it's good. She's looking for something. And I don't think she's going to find it in no man's land. But I feel bad because she's so into it, but I hate it out there. And I can't stop thinking about click beetles. Gordon laughs. He clears his throat. He's like, what's a click beetle? Joe says, you call yourself an outdoorsman. So you're in the wild and you hear this clicking sound and you think you're going crazy or have sudden onset tinnitus. But in fact, there's an ear-dwelling beetle in your cochlea. I'm serious. And you turn up dead. Gordon's very impressed by this. Joe's like, with a beetle next to your head because it crawls out when you die. I love the delivery of that bit. Gordon's like, Joe, that was in Star Trek too. Joe says, never seen it. Gordon's like, yes, you have. Joe says, and click beetles are real. Gordon says, he shoots again. He actually gets the ball in this time. He's like, yes. Joe celebrates with them. Gordon says, I wasn't aiming for that one, but it counts. So they're both terrible at pool. They're not good with sports. That's what we've learned. Joe says, so what do you think of Gladwell, Bristol, and their smoke and VC operation? Gordon says, well, you know, I was so excited about the, he says, I was excited about the AOL offer until I wasn't. Then I was excited about the VC route until I wasn't. So Joe says, well, what are you really excited about? Gordon says, this, you and me, here. These two. That's what they both want. They're both excited about this partnership. And also, I think if Gordon sells this company to anybody, that's the end. That's probably the end of his relationship with Dr. Katie Herman, whatever this thing is going to be. You know, like this little flirtmance thing that they've got going on right now. It probably isn't a thing once they sell this company. So there's a number of reasons. And I'm thinking AOL is not going to employ an underage, well, I don't know how old Haley is here, but Haley loses her job. Like everything that Gordon is enjoying about this job only exists because he and Joe are running it. So there's that. Joe is going to smile. That was a really nice thing for Gordon to say. He says, okay, if you make this shot, we're taking the VC money. Gordon's like, I hate that deal. You can see his face. He's like, this is the kind of challenge. This is the kind of this is the kind of challenge people would throw down in a little sporting contest. But Gordon doesn't even like the idea of the outcome. So he doesn't know what to do with it. Gordon's like, fine. He takes the challenge because he gotta, right? And he shoots and he actually makes it in. Joe's like, oh, and Gordon, he wants to cheer. He's like, but he doesn't want to take the VC money. So he doesn't want to celebrate. Joe's like, we're not taking the money. Gordon's like, okay, all right, good, rack them. They don't know how this works. The whole contests and wagers and a sporting event. It's fine. So sweet. I do think the click beetle story, you know, you can take the literal click beetleness of it all, but also this idea that something crawls into your head and doesn't come out until you die could also be like, I don't know, maybe I'm taking this too far, like an idea or a toxicity. Like she wants me to be in the outdoors, but it's giving me this thought that this is going to be the end of us. Like, and this is going to be the end. Like, she's trying to figure something out. Like, I don't know. I think it's just planting a bad idea in his brain as much as a bad bug, you know? And like, I don't know. That's a little, maybe a little too abstract for the situation. But I think the idea that there's something bad implanted into his head that won't come out until it's all over is bleak. You know, not a good state of affairs. All right. We're going to go to Agak. There's I don't even really know how to describe this. It doesn't look like the lobby area. It looks like sort of a reception party area, like a place that you might have like a function. And we've got the rover site up on a screen hanging from the ceiling. We see the 500,000 searches daily listed there. Donna is going to go to the front to speak. She says, here we go. Okay, she clinks her champagne glass. She says, wow, so you all know we got off to a kind of rocky start, but last month, suddenly you really turned it around, huh? Just wow. Credit goes to Cecil for his breakthrough with the algorithm. Everybody raises glasses to Cecil. All the partners are there, the whole Rover team. People are celebrating. She says, we're so proud to offer you Series A financing to Rover. Everybody shouts, to Rover. Donna goes, this is a really interesting scene in the fluidity of the camera moving between conversations. There's a lot of like, there's this game in improv called Follow the Lever, where there'll be two people there'll be a couple people, or it could be more, depending how many people you have in the room. There'll be a couple people on stage having a scene. Somebody has to make a reason to leave. And then you go with the person who left to the next scene, and somebody else comes up on stage to join them. So you get a bunch of scenes. It's a way to involve a lot of different people on stage, where, you know, people keep coming in, and then somebody will come up with a reason to go away. They have to get something, they have to go talk to somebody. There's a reason they have to get off stage to go have another scene. And then we see the next scene. So you're always following the lever. This scene kind of works that way, because we're in this party atmosphere, this sort of celebration reception atmosphere, and we're following different people, and we're moving with them to the next conversation. And then we'll move with the next person to the next conversation. So it's kind of an interesting, there must have been a fair amount of choreography in this to make this work on the day. So Donna gives her speech, and then we sort of go into these breakout groups. Donna goes to Tonya. She says, "Good job." Tonya says, "Thank you." Tonya walks off. Trip comes over to Donna. Donna says, he says, "Donna, hey." Donna is pouring herself more champagne because she hasn't had enough champagne yet. He says, "I owe you an apology. I didn't see it at first, but this thing is killer. I mean, your guy really nailed it." She says, "Yeah, he really did." Trip gives her a long look. He says, "Yeah, to perseverance." As she, maybe it's long because she's still pouring her drink and he wants to toast, but he's kind of looking her up and down. Anyway, Diane comes over and kind of kills the mood a little bit for Trip, I think. So they all clink glasses. Trip says, "Hi, congratulations to Diane," and then he walks away. So now it's a conversation between Diane and Donna. In these cases, it was a follow the stayer, I guess. Diane is saying, "Well, that must feel really good. Like, I know it's been a tough one, and given where we were a month ago, it must feel like a curveball, but it will pay off. You'll see." We're going to find out pretty soon that a month ago, Donna was thinking about selling to AOL. That's how bad it was. And then they turned it around. Okay, so now we're going to go over and we're going to see Boz is laughing with Vera and Elliot, and probably the new guy from Rover. Diane comes over to them. We're going to follow Diane away from the Donna conversation. Diane pulls Boz off to the side, and she says, "You really pulled this off." And just in the nick, she leans in and she whispers, "About a month ago, Donna was going to dump the whole thing to AOL. Oh my God. That's exactly the outcome Boz needed. This is not the outcome Boz needed. That was the outcome Boz needed." So that is not a celebratory, congratulatory statement. Diane walks away. Boz is taking that in. We follow him to go over to where Cecil is standing, talking with Elias Amador, one of the partners, the name partner. Elias says, "So you really cracked," Elias says, "So you really cracked the whole thing wide open. How'd you do it?" Cecil says, "Well, Boz actually had the initial idea, that what we call the waiting room concept." Boz says, "Yeah, you see, people wait around all the time. They're used to it." We pull back and we see that conversation is still happening, but Donna is listening to that conversation, except Donna is supposed to be having a conversation with somebody else we don't know. So this is where it gets pretty funny to me. So Donna's listening in on their conversation instead of engaging in the conversation she's supposed to be having. And so Boz is explaining this waiting room concept. He's like, "Yeah, people wait all the time in real life, on the web." Cecil takes over now. He says, "Yeah, I came up with a queuing program." Donna's still listening. He says, "Now we're the first site to index entire pages. You know, we had a crawler, but it was a rude one." Boz says, "Sure, we had to teach that little sucker some manners." But they all laugh. This feels very like, between Cecil and Boz, it feels very like they've worked out the story. So now we've been seeing that conversation happening, but the camera pulled back enough where we could see Donna listening to it. So now Donna is still in that conversation with somebody we don't know. Tonya breaks into that conversation with the woman that Donna is not listening to at all. And And that woman goes away. And Tonya says to Donna, excuse me, I just wanted to thank you for not giving up on us. Donna's like, well, you steered the ship. You should be proud of yourself. Donna leaves the conversation with Tonya as she sees Cecil walking away from that other conversation. She intercepts Cecil. She puts an arm around Cecil's shoulder. She says, hey, you're the star of the show. He says, yeah, the growth has been incredible. She says, yeah, well, I was just a little bit surprised because, well, you know, you'd struggled for so long. So I just have to ask, who wrote the new algorithm? Cecil doesn't know what to say. Look, we didn't see it happen, but we know that Cam wanted to help Boz from that conversation she just had with Boz. And we can see that Donna thinks Cecil wasn't capable of making the changes as quickly as he did. It's like, you know, it looks like cheating on the test all of a sudden when you're a failing student and you do really well. So she's very skeptical of all of this, and she doesn't trust what's happening here. Her ears are perked up for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I have so many things I want to say about that scene, but I might wait till the feedback section to do it. So we've got one more scene here. Joe is venting to Cam in his apartment at night in front of the window. We haven't actually seen what Cam did to help Boz, but it helps us to have this last scene to know that she did in fact do something. And it answers Donna's question to Cecil that she just asked. Joe is venting. He's in his apartment in front of this beautiful, like he's in front of that window, you know, the beautiful shot of outside his apartment from what we can see from inside anyway. We see the back of Cam's head as he's pacing in front of the window. He says, I can't believe that Rover is getting a Series A term sheet. Now, all of a sudden, we're up against this capitalized nightmare. Some new crawler interacting with the data indexing. It could kill us. The camera is coming around now to the front of Cam's face. He says, we've got to divide our focus just to compete, but our whole approach, the human touch, it's now completely and totally, and we cut to the closing credits. It reminds me of, you know, in season 3, where we get Gordon, like we cut to opening credits where, you know, Gordon was just slugged by one of the people from Swap Meet by accident, and he tells everybody to sit down. He's like, what the and then we cut to opening credits. Now we've used that to cut to the close credits, which is kind of an interesting new way to do it. So but I like that they did this because we haven't seen what Cam did, but as we're coming around to her face, you know that the reason Joe's having a bad day is because of a thing that she did. Yeah, so good. Okay, so that's 404, folks. There's a lot that I like about this episode. I love this episode so much. I'm a little stuck on the timing of it all, but so many really good things. I love Katie Herman. I love everything they show us with her at the start of this. I love the dynamic between her and Gordon, even when we've only seen a second of it. I think they're great. You know, like even just the interview between them was such good energy. I just think that there's a real separation here between characters who are in a good place in their lives and who know what they want and where they are, and those who don't. There's like such a stark contrast between those things, as there often is in this show. Okay, music. Bunch of different songs here. First of all, we've got Electric Relaxation by A Tribe Called Quest. This song is kind of lightly in the background. This is the 1993 song, kind of lightly in the background when Joe and Gordon are talking about Comet in the beginning. Cameron's working on a motorcycle, Haley's working. You can hear the song throughout that scene. We've got Elevate Her by Our Daughter's Wedding. It's a 1982 song. It's the one that made me think about Jane Fonda workout videos. And this is when Joe and Gordon are introducing Katie to the team. And then we've got Cannonball by the Breeders. That's a 1993 song. A bunch of 93 songs in this one. This is when Cam is setting up the Airstream. And then we've got a song called Range Life by Pavement, 94, that song. This is when Cam, Joe, Boz, and Gordon are at the Airstream. And then we've got Everybody Up by the Fender 4, 1965 song, very surf feel. Haley celebrates a win in the weekly website indexing contest. And then we're going to get Rebel Girl by Bikini Kill from 1993. So that is the music in this episode. A fair number of songs here. We've had some episodes in season 4 where there were not a lot of song needle drops that were brought in. This one, we got some. My favorite quotes, got a whole array of them here. Okay, so I'll start with some honorable mentions. We can't pay everybody in Necco wafers. This is a Gordon quote. I like that one. I like a quote from Cam. I'm trying to buy this here jewel and sweep you away to a magical land. That was nice. And also a reference to what Lydia was saying earlier. Okay, we've got a quote from Donna. Do better, both of you. And when you walk out that door, I want to see you head in the same damn direction. Yeah, I don't blame her. Got a quote from Haley. And today we won and we kicked Feel the Burn's ass and everyone cheered and they played this crazy surfer music and I got to throw the ceremonial pie in Dad's face. She was so excited to deliver this too. I just love that. Here's one from Boz that I liked. We're so screwed. The light from Screwed gonna take 1,000 years to reach us. Yeah, well described. Another one that I really liked, a very visual one from Gordon, is must be pretty snug out there in that Airstream, like 2 giants living in a thimble. But my favorite quote, okay, so actually, if I really sat with this, I toyed with the idea of putting Katie's entire monologue about metal, sorting metal albums in here. But I think that's kind of unfair because I don't normally use like entire monologues. Like it's sort of not a fair fight. But it's a really good monologue and I do want to highlight that here. But I thought if I'm not going to use that, I want to give a nod to Katie Herman. So here's my quote of the episode. Come on, Mrs. Doubtfire, you know what's at stake. Research the web like it's 1989. I liked that one, but I just really wanted to acknowledge Katie. It's okay, so that's the favorite quote. Now, let's get into the feedback section here. All kinds of feedback that I wanted to bring in today. First, we're gonna start with @CamHowsGF. Hello. Okay, first thought about 307. The convo between Cam and Boz before the meeting is so beautiful. I'm always at awe every time I watch it. Cam asking for advice and Boz offering wisdom and his paternal affection to her. I always tear up on the scene, especially when Cam shows her ring to Boz and they smile at each other very softly. Why am I bringing this one in here, you ask? Well, think about it. That was really the last heart-to-heart that those two had. We did get a scene with them on Boz's boat in the middle of Diane's driveway. But Boz was very cold with Cam. It was very awkward between them. They were not on good terms with each other at all in that conversation. We saw Boz see Cam again at Gordon's birthday party, and Boz was very friendly with her, but they didn't have a heart-to-heart. They didn't have a long conversation. So really, like 307, that conversation right before the board meeting with Boz and Cam was really the last time you see those two characters. I think the last time that I saw them and I was like, oh, those two. And then you get to a scene like the one we saw in this episode where Boz finally opens up to somebody about how bad it still is with his financial troubles. And, you know, what it means about his relationship with Diane even. So I really wanted to bring in this comment from @CamHowsGF because it's been a minute since we saw such a touching conversation between them, but they still have this level. They still have this I'll do anything for you sort of bond between each other. And it's beautiful to see that. He is really having a hard time. He's really hurting. He was there to help her. And then she realizes how much help he needs. And I think, and sometimes I think that's when Cam's at her best, when she finally can be like, oh, wait a minute, somebody needs me. She tends to rise to the occasion there when approached in the right way. Boz wasn't even asking for help, and she just came in and she offered it. Okay, and Cam Howe's GF also has a point about 306. How many times do you need to hear that I can't do this without you? Donna hallucinating the conversation with Cam makes me go crazy every time. It's heartbreaking to see them fall apart in the next episode. You can feel the tension between them since the previous episode. When I was looking back through the comments I haven't read yet, I was like, oh, I have to bring that one in here. Because here Donna's at Rover. She's got she's a partner at a venture capital firm that has nothing to do with Cam. Cam does not work there. And once again, Cam saves the day with a technical solve. Like, how many times do you need to hear that I can't do this without you? The reason Rover got back on its feet, the reason Rover turned things around, the reason Rover is getting a Series A term sheet is not because of Cecil. It's because of Cam. Does Donna explicitly know that it was Cam that did this? No. But I think she could absolutely suspect that that's an option here. I don't know if she thinks that yet in this episode. I mean, if she's talking to Cecil and she's saying who really did the work, she could think that it's somebody Cecil knows, but she was overhearing a conversation between Cecil and Boz where they sounded very coordinated. So I don't know. I think she has a suspicion here that it could be Cam. And either way, it still made me think about this line. How many times do you need to hear that I can't do this without you? So I thought that was such a fun one to pull in here. Now let's get a thought from present hour 24, also going back to the threshold, 307. Part of me does wish that Boz would lead the way more, but he really seems like a changed man after getting out of prison. Boz and Cam really do seem like they could battle forever. Do you think of both of them are perfectionists? I just wanted to bring some thoughts in from present hour 24. I love hearing from you, and you're not quite up to date with where we are in the episodes, but it's always fun to see how like your thoughts from previous episodes are dovetailing in here. And this episode feels like, what's the word that I want here? This episode feels like Boz is hitting some sort of a rock bottom, because he went to prison, between season 1 and season 2. Season 2, he gets out of prison and we see him going on apology tours. We see him really trying to make amends with people that he feels like he's hurt, with his son, with Cam. Like, they're just people he's going around and he's trying to be an honest person. He's trying to live with honesty. I think we see that again when he has like full disclosure with Diane as they get together. He's like, look, I went to prison. I need you to know who I am. I don't want to start this thing on the wrong foot. Like, we see that he's come to value honesty and being accountable and making amends in his post-prison life. And this financial thing has really forced him to live in an opposite way. He's hiding important information from just about everybody who's important to him. He's not being accountable. It's causing him to do some shady things. And he's even doing it badly enough that there are people who know anyway. I mean, Tonya's known the whole time what's been going on with Boz, and she has a real impression of him because of it. So, yeah, I mean, do I think both of them are perfectionists? I think both of them are very lost right now. Cam and Boz in this episode are at a point where they're at real low points. And with Cam, with Boz for sure. With Cam, I mean, it's like, I feel like she's been sort of like doing a bit of this around rock bottom. Getting together with Joe, I think kind of lifted things up. But the newness of a relationship like that does not make up for not knowing what you want or who you are at this moment. Like, she needs to know who she is separate from Joe, just as much as she needs to know what her relationship with Joe looks like. And I don't think she has that information. So I like that these two are able to commiserate a little bit at this moment in time where they're both struggling. All right, let's get some thoughts from Sergio. From 403. What exactly is a cheese egg? I want to make one. Pause. Here's what I think we saw. Because we see her making one for Joe in that last episode. Actually, we see her hand one to Joe, and then we see her making one for herself. And we don't see up close. It's not like a cooking show, but she cracks an egg into a mug. She mixes it up. So she's scrambling the egg. I think she then would have put like probably shredded cheese on top, and she pops it in the microwave. I was gonna call it like poor man's frittata, but that's just not even. It's not this Italian can't call it that. So cheese egg seems like one of those sort of simple things you come up with in college and never let go of. Okay, continuing. I have seen the scene where Gordon lectures Joe about working with Haley 4 or 5 times, and it never hit me that he was really talking about Ryan and not so much Cam. You just made that scene so much better. Oh. Pause there too. Yeah, I think what's so tricky when Joe is at Gordon's house and Joe's like all excited about Comet and Gordon's like, I want to go spelunking with my daughters. Stop. And he's saying, Joe, like, here's all the like I've seen how you work with people. I've seen what you do with people when you get excited, and Kaylee can't handle that. Gordon cites all of these specific examples, but I think that it's a learned behavior for Gordon to not get anywhere in the vicinity of mentioning Ryan or Macmillan Utility, because Macmillan Utility will make Joe think of Ryan. I think this is a learned behavior for Gordon. I think that Gordon has been so up close to Joe, watching him deal with depression, watching him deal with the post-Ryan fallout. And Gordon has learned the hard way all of Joe's triggers, and he tries to avoid that. So when you get to a scene like this, it's not the first thing that we would think of as a viewer, because Gordon is actively not mentioning Ryan in the litany of things, or Macmillan Utility in the litany of things that Gordon is citing as examples. But it's a conspicuous absence for sure. I mean, I think that is another example that Gordon could pull from. And if anything, I think it's the most apt, because I think of Ryan as a true mentoring relationship, which is basically what it should or would be with Haley too, because of the age. With like Cam or with Gordon, they were fully functioning adults with strong ideas, and they, would potentially challenge Joe. So I don't think you could look at either of those relationships as a mentoring relationship. But I think Haley's is probably the closest to what it was like for Joe to work with Ryan, and that ended badly. So for whatever reason, and so I think, yeah, it's, as an audience member, you have to really overcome the fact that Gordon is not actively not mentioning Ryan or Macmillan Utility. And that for me is why I noticed it so much. But only on a deep dive, because you're looking for that stuff, To continue with Sergio's thoughts. Seeing a copy of Electronic Gaming Monthly on the show brought an instant dose of nostalgia to my cold heart. I was a subscriber to EGM for 3 years when I was a kid, 93 to 96. Another example of the folks behind Halt and Catch Fire really doing their homework, or perhaps drawing from their own experiences. The kind of stuff that makes me feel like this show was made for me. I love that. It's a one detail, and it feels so lived in for you. And it's so great. Okay, a comment from Synthetic Gerbil, a couple of them actually. Okay, we'll start with some thoughts about 403. The Joe Lieberman that is referred to is the Connecticut senator who spent a good chunk of his career trying to ban, censor, and regulate the sale of video games. It ended with video games getting an age rating system, but still he carried on through the 2000s, even, and it really never worked out for it as a great policy. A lot of the hearings were kind of a farce, filled with misinformation and just Puritan beliefs that very much mirrored the filthy 15 songs of the 80s with Tipper Gore that led to the parental advisory sticker on records. Oh, interesting. I remember that sticker. I remember that marking on records, and didn't know much about how those came to be. And so, okay, Joe Lieberman, that's what that reference is. Thank you for sharing that, Synthetic Gerbil. That's a really helpful lived in detail from that time period. I also wanted to further explore, so Synthetic Gerbil, regarding 402 on like the whole long phone call bit, because Synthetic Gerbil had said like, yeah, you know, that episode format worked for me and it could have easily not. And I wanted to dig into that more. Like Synthetic Gerbil was saying, if the whole episode had been like that, it probably wouldn't have worked. And I wanted to know more about that. And I had asked if Synthetic Gerbil had seen Before Sunrise. And this really cool comment comes from it that makes me even more understand why this episode worked for me and worked for Synthetic Gerbil as well. So here's the thought. I've seen Before Sunrise. It's okay, but I haven't seen the sequels. And I think that can work well in the movie format because that's the reality of the language and directing that film uses. The gimmick that film uses simply wouldn't work, in my opinion, if it were jammed in full with no other characters except Joe and Cam, because Halt and Catch Fire had not been storytelling in that manner up to that point, and it would have stuck out like a sore thumb. So instead, it's a show just incorporating the idea as a tool to tell the story that can be put on hold, pun not intended, while other characters' lives are touched upon. In some ways, I think of it like the extract and defend Nerf gun fight with the GoPro. It's certainly a change in style and abrupt, but it's there to serve a purpose in the story to really get into the motivation and closeness of Cam and Tom developing a first-person shooter game together. So instead, we're left with the fun, relevant scene. While I think maybe another kind of show, like Community, for instance, would just do a whole episode on a Nerf gun fight with this kind of camera action. The oneer in 201 is there to reveal the chaos of mutiny, no more and no less. And it would have been aggravating if the whole episode were that. Avoiding the gimmick episode is how Halt and Catch Fire just makes these characters feel so real. And I appreciate it, even if sometimes I like a gimmick episode in a show. I love your point here. So the distinction is that like the gimmick works in an entire movie like Before Sunrise because it's a whole movie built around that. In this show, if they had it be a one-off episode where the entire episode was just a Joe and Cam conversation on the phone, that would have felt off to Synthetic Gerbil because it's a complete outlier. But what makes it work for Synthetic Gerbil is that that's what's happening with those characters, and it's weaving in and out between scenes with other characters that are not being done in that style. So it doesn't feel like an entire episode built around a gimmick. It feels like that's a storytelling device for these characters while we see what's happening in everybody else's world. I also think I like that balance for that reason too. I think it's a really good way to put it. I think those are really good other examples of scenes to pull in to say sometimes the show will do something that feels a little different. But I've often wondered, like, this show is good at experimenting, but still feeling like the show. And I often try to figure out how they do that. Like, they time jump, but I still feel like it's the same show. They have time jumped into different eras with different, like, really different cultural signifiers, and it still feels like the same show. And I think Synthetic Gerbil's explanation helps me understand a way that they're doing that. Because they're keeping some things true, even when they're using devices. Okay, Frack and Toaster Lovers thoughts. First of all, some thoughts on 403. The reason why there's so much less BS between Gordon and Joe is because they've already been through their first and second breakup as friends and working partners, grown and developed, and now their relationship is much better and more equal. Their relationship in season 1 was pretty terrible. Donna and Cameron started their friendship or working relationship later. It was better at first than what Joe and Gordon had at Cardiff, but then it imploded, as relationships on this show tend to do at least once. So it's a really good point, right? You can look at it and you can say, like, Joe and Gordon have figured out how to have a healthy relationship. Donna and Cameron have not. But I like this idea that Joe and Gordon have been through sort of more cycles of their relationship so far. They've worked out some kinks through some previous projects. And now we're seeing them in a third iteration, figuring out what the balance looks like. They learned how to get there. So is there hope for Donna and Cam? Maybe, because they've only had sort of one go at having a working partnership together. Crack and Toaster Lover also says, this being only my second time watching season 4, it's become obvious that the part I remember the least is the goings on at Donna's workplace with Trip and the Rover team. So it'll be fun to see how that plays out. And when I say I don't know what Trip is about, that I'm just speculating on what we've seen so far, I'm not pretending in order to not spoil people. I honestly don't remember. So far, I'm agreeing with you that it seems like he's interested in working more closely with Donna and maybe interested in her personally too. But Donna is now in a state of mind where she easily distrusts people and is ready to hate them. She also took out her anger and hurt from her conversation with Cameron on the Rover team. Yeah, the Rover team is like a dumping ground for however Donna feels about life. Poor Rover team. And in this episode, we're beginning to see that there's all kinds of problems happening for what's going on with the Rover dynamic. Even if Donna were not their leadership, like, or the partner overseeing them, there's just so many kinks to work out for this team, for their supervisors. It's a lot. The Trip stuff, I've got more comments about Trip coming later from others. You guys are turning me on to the idea that maybe I wasn't going to say this, Frack and Toaster Lover, but I hadn't really ever considered that Trip might have feelings for Donna. And I'm now exploring this as I'm looking at these episodes, because is this like another Yo-Yo has a fondness for Cam sort of situation? We might be getting... I was watching some of the looks that Trip gives Donna. Like, there's one particular moment where he goes to toast Donna in this episode after she, does that speech, and she's pouring more champagne for herself, and he wants to wait for the toast, but he kind of looks down, and I'm like, where are you looking, Trip? I don't even... I never thought about this before. So I'm kind of interested to see if there's any there with this. Frack and Toaster Lover, we're going to be looking at this together, I think. Thank you for alerting me to that. And there are a couple other people whose comments made me think, like, have I just been missing this? Always something new to find in this show, right? Okay. Frack and Toaster Lover says, at the conference, while Donna made everything she said and how she said it sound antagonistic and sarcastic, what she really asked in a way was if Cameron would consider working with her again, and that Donna might help her. She may want revenge and war now, but maybe she would want a reconciliation even more, even though she only kind of asks her for it through statements such as that business people could help the creatives with their meandering failing projects. I could help you, and then you wouldn't be failing the way you are now. Or questions about whether some of the blame was on Cameron's side too, and all delivered in the most hostile way possible. What an interesting take on that scene. So what comes off as Donna being like kind of catty and being like, hey, are you sure? Like, hey, you're on stage and everybody is paying attention to you, and I haven't even introduced myself, but hey, are you sure it's not you? Are you sure that people can't be like, this can't be a healthy dynamic? For Frack and Toaster Lover, this partly read as Donna saying, I mean, like, I kind of can help. Like, maybe she's putting her hat in the ring in a very hostile way. It's kind of an interesting angle of this. I like that. Minor note, however she may be feeling about Donna at the moment, at least Cameron is acknowledging that Donna is a great mother, saying their daughters have two awesome parents. That's something she said in the conversation with Gordon. Donna definitely is dressing great this season. And I agree with Evan that white blouse with integrated choker collar is the best. I want that blouse. Woo! Donna's outfits are on fire season 4. Man. And yeah, Cameron making that comment to Gordon. You know, Cameron has been saying things to a couple characters. Cameron made that comment to Gordon in the last episode. In this episode, Cameron is giving Rover a much better grade than either Joe or Gordon would. And Donna is at the helm of it, you know, so like she's willing to overlook that, or she's considering that and still giving Rover a better grade. And then with Boz, you know, she's saying like, I think Rover's got potential in a moment of trying to cheer him up. And there's no caveat about Donna in there. Plus, you know, even the essence of what Cam's saying, like Haley remembers that enough that she brings that information to Donna. She's like, even Cam liked Rover. Donna's like, when did Cam say she liked Rover? So I think there's a bunch of sort of like, either Cam has sort of put it away. I don't know. I don't know that she's trying to pass these messages along to Donna, but this is not what's taking up the majority of her thought space, her brain space. You know, like there's some water under this bridge for Cam. Frack and Toaster Lava continues, and we're still on 403. I'm surprised that in your recap, you skipped the most important line in that scene between Tom and Cam when Cam was telling Tom about her affair. So I skipped an important line there. Tom telling Cameron, you love him. Not even asking her, do you love him? He's stating it as a fact he is sure of. Cameron tries to deny it. That's not true. And Tom retorts, why should I believe you? And of course he shouldn't. From the first line we see her say, it wasn't about him. I was sad. We know it's not true. She was very happy spending that day with Joe, and it was about their relationship and their reconnection. What I'm not entirely sure is whether she's just lying to Tom or if she's trying to convince herself too. But when Tom point blank told her, you love him, and she had to try to convince him she didn't. I don't think her reply was even remotely reassuring to Tom. She doesn't even say, no, I don't love him, I love you. Instead, her defense is that Joe is impossible to love. Now, she's obviously not saying people have never fallen in love with Joe. Of course, many people have been in love with him. Cameron herself, Sarah, Simon, likely others. Instead, what she's saying is that she doesn't see that love as real because she's arguing Joe is this empty shapeshifter who adjusts to the situation and presents a persona to draw people in. He makes you fall in love with that version of Joe, but that's not really him. It's a fantasy. Basically what Cameron told Joe in 110, that she thought he had a heart, but now she realizes it was just an echo of what she thought and felt. I feel like this is how she thought about him and her feelings for him for a long time after the end of their relationship. That what drew her to him and what she saw in him wasn't real. It was just one of his masks. So that love in a way wasn't real because she loved a fantasy. That real Joe, the real Joe is empty. But did Cameron still believe that in 91? I really don't think so. Not after what we saw in season 3. I think she's going back and clinging to that because it's the only way she can deny Tom's words to Tom and to herself. And I really don't see how that could possibly be comforting to Tom. She essentially isn't denying she's in love with Joe, but instead saying, it doesn't matter, it's not real, it should be disregarded because of the issues she has with Joe. Where does that leave Tom? Is she with him just because she never resolved those issues? The present day scenes are contrasting her words with the reality of season 4 Joe. No more empty, sterile apartment from season 1. Joe has grown as a person and been able to delve deep into himself and find out who he is separate from his father. And it's now undeniable there's all this depth and emotion in him. Everything is reminding Cameron how untrue what she said in 91 was. Okay, really, really good. I'm trying to figure out. So I have a comment from Amelia Flowers that is a partial response to that. So I want to respond to the other things that aren't that piece. I mean, it's really good points, right? I think we have so often, even as an audience, wondered how real Joe was being, but we often had more information than Cam did, especially in seasons 2 and 3, when Cam does not have a ton of interactions with Joe. But what she does see with Joe can look like he's putting on like a performance again, especially season 2. As much as we might think like Joe's trying, but he's not, the results aren't different. For Cam, it's like, you're infiltrating mutiny, like get out of my space. Like he's doing things that look like it was all orchestrated regardless of what his intentions were. So, and then in season 3, like they don't have a ton of interactions, but one of the important things that happens is he poaches Ryan. That's a very simplistic way of looking at the situation and leaves out a lot of information. But I think there's like certain beats here in seasons 2 and 3 where she doesn't necessarily have new information from season 1. So maybe she's been clinging to that for a while, but somewhere along the way, she's been seeing other shades, other sides of Joe that she's starting to believe more. So yeah, her saying he's an empty shell, I don't know if she still believes that at this point. But I think that is a thing that she can say to Tom. I see no, like, I just, I keep thinking about the fact that she has this conversation with Tom where she reveals the affair. They have the, we see everything that they say in that conversation, and they stick it out another like years. They try to have kids. Like, what is it that convinces Tom? Like, what is it that makes Tom say, okay, yeah, all right, I see your point. Let's stay together here. What is it that makes him, like in Yerba Buena, when Cam goes to see Tom at the diner and that conversation doesn't go well, and then Cam goes back to Tom's place and they end up getting married. What is it that makes Tom in that conversation be like, yeah, this could work? I don't know. Is it just two love goggles? Like, is that's what the situation is for Tom? Because I feel like Tom needs to hear very specific things from Cam for this to work, and I can't imagine Cam saying those at either of those points. Like, Cam does not, I don't know how honest Cam is being with herself in these moments, like Brack and Toaster Lover is saying. So what is Tom seeing that makes him feel like he should be pursuing this relationship with her at those moments? I don't know. Like, it makes me concerned for him and for her. Why does she want to stick this out exactly? It's so tricky. But there is a point that I will that I have a rebuttal about, but I'd like to bring in a comment from Amelia Flowers to start that. Amelia Flowers on 403 says, I also took the I was sad comment about generally her life in Tokyo, which, as Melissa pointed out in the podcast, was something Tom could have asked more about, as that seemed major. Of course, she wasn't going to look sad signing her game. She's working, promoting her game. Also, it probably helped being somewhere else for a while, even for a day. I think Frack and Toaster Lover was fixating on the time she spent with Joe and saying they look happy and connected. Amelia, in her comment here, is saying what I was feeling as well, that sure, Cam is having an escape day with Joe and she's happy to be escaping with Joe, and it's great and it's fun and it's celebratory. But she is escaping from something, it feels like. And when we see her at the start of the episode, I don't feel like Cam's a happy version of herself. She's not openly weeping. She's not like taking rage out against the guy who's showing her around Comdex. She's not like sobbing into her bean and cheese burrito that he hands her. She's not berating people who come up for the signing before Joe drops the disc in front of her. Like, she's not being overt about it. But for me, I think sadness, I think depression, I don't know if we're going to label that but I think depression often can be a high functioning thing where you do your job, you show up, you do the things that you have to do, and you are feeling a certain way underneath that. And it's taking a certain amount of energy for you to present that version of yourself. I don't know if what she's feeling is full on depression, but I do feel like she's not like living her best life in Tokyo. And she sort of says as much with Joe. It's like, I felt really, she says like, I felt really out of place in Japan. And then one day I was like, I'm going to just stop feeling that way. But is she saying like, I love it now? I love everything about it. I'm so happy to be there. She's not saying that either. So for me, this all reads as an escape day. And I think I can believe her comment about I was feeling sad and I just sort of like had an escape from that. I do think there's something that needs to be examined there if that's true. I think that would be something verifiable for Tom. Like if he's thought about that for 2 seconds, he might be able to think about the Cam he's known in Tokyo versus the Cam he saw in Texas, maybe in California. And I think he could sort of compare those up against each other and ask himself if those two Cams looked the same. But I don't think he's done that exercise, and I don't know if he wants to. So not a great place for their relationship to get to. But Amelia and I kind of have that same read of it was more about where she was before that episode going into the escape. Continuing with Amelia's thoughts from 403, there's so much going on for Gordon. His ISP business that he's worked so hard on for years is dead in the water after one dramatic day. The same day that his less troublesome daughter, Haley, obviously has some major troubles that she's been hiding. I just, reading you put it that way, Amelia, made me realize, like, can you imagine if literally the biggest, like your entire job, like everything you were doing all just came apart in one day? Wow. So just the idea of that. What a defeating thing that must be. Like, okay, well, there goes all that. Like you can't even do anything about it. Amelia sort of raises a question here on the ages of Joni and Haley. Okay, ages. Okay, I thought there was 2 years between Joni and Haley. There was more thoughts on this, but who can anybody like point to anything that verifies the age difference? 2 years sounds about right. But do we have anything that we can remember as a specific detail that gives us, we get like moments of knowing Joni's age, but do we get definite answers on Haley's and know like what the separation is between them? Question for all. Okay, Amelia continues. Cam at Joe's. It's like she's rediscovering who this man is, that there is a fascination as she moves around his apartment. The broken glass and old frame of his mother's picture jars so much with the rest of the decor. I feel that each place Joe lives in reflects his journey and the layers peeled back. So yeah, I also had that feeling of the picture looks kind of out of place. And then another comment that I saw made me think like, this is probably the picture that came from his dad's. Like when Joe was going through his dad's personal effects, maybe the only thing that he took was this picture. And that might be why it doesn't feel like it fits in with everything else, but it's like part of his story and he wants it on display. I think it's just interesting to think about the context of that. But yeah, it is fun to see Cam sort of walking around his apartment and just exploring what he's left out. And seeing, you know, like that's not really a thing that she was able to get much, there wasn't much fruit born from doing that kind of thing in season 1. You know, he has this like all glass apartment with a baseball bat in it. And now like he's got some stuff in there that she can consider. Joe looks so crestfallen when Gordon is chewing him out. Him leaving reminded me of season 1 when Donna comes home after the weekend of copying IBM's BIOS and also after the hurricane. Yeah, when Gordon's like, no, I don't want to work with you and Haley can't work with you. That's it. Like, because Gordon wants to go spelunking and that's that. You know, Joe just, you know, this is what Joe wants. Joe wants to work with people he cares about. And, you know, Joe's gotten those boundaries set from Gordon before. Like Amelia mentions, when Donna comes home at the end of their weekend working on reverse engineering the IBM BIOS, Gordon coming home after like Joe spends a night with Donna and the kids at the hurricane. Yeah, I think Joe's had these really important moments with Gordon and Gordon's family where he, I don't know, I think he has these revelatory situations with them. And then very often the spell has to be broken. I loved the delivery of Search dinner party conversation. Search dinner party conversation. So awkward and never fails to make me smile. Yeah, you know, Donna is so in her ruthless element in season 4. She's like, to see her be awkward is not, is very out of place, right? It's funny. It probably would have worked better in the prior iterations of Donna, but it's fun to see this moment where she's trying to be human and she's glitching. It's so great. Joni tearing up, wonderful. It was great hearing Jeff Freilich, the producer, talk about the actor playing Joni, Catherine Newton, came from another set late and just nailed that scene. Yeah, Jeff Freilich had some fun thoughts about this dinner party scene. And yeah, it's nice to see this moment of connection between Donna and Joni that's happening through a conversation to her work crew. Amelia says, I did take the parasite comment of being inflammatory. How could her current employer not take it as a slight? It's true. I mean, yeah, I think it walks the line. I think Cam, at other points in her life, Cam absolutely could have eviscerated everybody and everything up on stage. I don't think she goes that far. She makes a point to say, I don't mean Atari, but I mean some people could be parasites. So she says at least that, but also it isn't a great look. I acknowledge it's not a great look to be like bad mouthing previous people that you've worked with up on a stage. People can sort of run the numbers on this, I guess, maybe figure out who she was talking about. So there's that. What is Alexa's job or role, by the way? I never could figure that out. A consultant of what? It's a really good question. I will say it's not that episode, last episode was not the last time we see Alexa. So I'm going to have to pay attention to that because I'm not entirely sure how Alexa makes her money. It's not immediately obvious to me when I think back on previous rewatches. So let's just see what we come up with for this. Maybe somebody who knows more about the industry might have a better sense of where Alexa sits in that landscape. What Cam tells Gordon and Haley wanting to work with him gets me every time. And then Gordon saying how it wouldn't be so bad if the girls turned out like her. This show, I know, right? Isn't that sweet? Yeah, I mean, Cam being able to put it all into perspective for Gordon and be like, your kid wants to work with you on a thing she loves. What is it about spelunking, man? I don't know. I think I'm glad that she got through to Gordon on that. I think Cam's perspective as a girl who lost her dad young probably resonates quite a bit. Pulls at his heartstrings a little bit, makes him listen to her in a way that he might not listen to somebody else. So I think it's, you know, beautifully delivered. I loved Kids in the Hall when it aired. I remembered going around town squishing people's heads and pinching faces. I was so happy to see it referenced in the show. I enjoyed this episode a lot. Huh. Okay, I mean, I didn't know that episode. I didn't know that about the, you know, Kids in the Hall. So I only know it from this show, but it's fun to see that it really was tapping into something real for a lot of people. I always got vibes that Tripp was interested in Donna personally as well as to work with. Holy smokes, what have I been missing? I can't wait to see what new information this view it has as I watch like the future episodes, because I never considered that before. So cool. All right. There's an echo in what Donna says to Vera in what Diane said to Donna in season 3 after Mutiny acquires swap meet. When Diane makes that point about Donna doing that not so sure thing with her voice, where Donna mentions to Vera, like, you're smiling while delivering bad information. Do you know you're doing that? Yeah, I like that. This show is doing a great job about like, and that's also why these recaps end up getting longer and longer as we go through, because everything from season one was new information, but once you start hitting season 2, 3, and 4, everything is new information and building upon what we've seen before. And so we get these echoes of moments that make everything seem more meaningful. It's so lovely. Okay, we have a couple thoughts here that I want to put back to back. Amelia says, Joe watching Cam. What was going through my mind when Joe's watching her? How long will she stay? Oh, actually, I've read that wrong. Joe watching Cam. That was going through my mind when Joe's watching her. How long will she stay? Okay, so that's what Amelia thought. Let me actually pause there for a second and go to Evan the Stray. Welcome, Evan the Stray. Evan has some thoughts on that as well. When Joe was telling her to unpack her boxes earlier in the episode, I'm thinking that he was hoping doing so would also bring a little more permanence to her staying with him there. To see her chucking them into a dumpster without emptying them also removed the anchor effect in any associated nesting Joe might have been hoping the contents would help cement. Yeah, I think we're all kind of like finding some thoughts on this that are in the ballpark of each other. I think also the fact that Joe in this episode is openly acknowledging to Gordon, like, I think Cam is looking for something and I'm not sure she's going to find it in an airstream in a field in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, and she loves it, but I don't. I think all of that is saying something. I think she's found this airstream she's trying to live in. It's meant to be an escape for the two of them. Joe doesn't need that. He is happy in his apartment, and he's like, are you moving out of my place? He's not moving out of his place. He's staying in his place. So I think the thought of like unpack your boxes wasn't get rid of your stuff. It was integrate. Like, I think that was his ideal scenario. And then she just tosses her stuff. So it's like, oh, she's really starting fresh. But by the way, I mean, if anybody's getting a taste of his own medicine with that, it's Joe, because Joe has literally burned things down when he's left places before. So he's on the receiving end of somebody else showing that they have the capacity to do that. How does he feel? What insight might that give him for other people in his world? I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting thing for him to experience from the other side of it. Surely not what he was looking for. But all right. Evan also has another thought about 403 that I wanted to share. Yep. Trip wants to work with Donna. He does the cringy guitar thing in her office, like fluffing his plumage and dancing. It'd be at least half different if he was in his office and she happened to come in there unannounced. Also, the magazine he has delivered to her with Cam's game review, I think he was actually trying to make her feel better. He witnessed the entanglement with Cam and probably thought that seeing Cam get a poor review would help vindicate Donna's position, or at least provide cathartic schadenfreude. So we're saying him coming in and really badly strumming this guitar was like a mating dance? I can't wait to keep watching Trip scenes with the idea that he's kind of got the hots for Donna and seeing how that bears out. I'm so excited. Thank you, everybody, because everybody's seeing this but me. Apparently it's there. So I don't know. Let's see what happens now. I don't know. I'm in uncharted territory right now. So exciting. Gosh. Okay. Evan's thoughts about 404. Cam refuses Gordon's help with her motorcycle engine and exhibits an irritated emotional response. It just makes me think if she'd been willing to bend a little more over the years, allow others to work with her more, and accept outside views as more valuable, she may have had more success with endeavors or projects. For example, her mutiny exit, Atari, and Pilgrim. Her motorcycle issue later in this episode. Why does she touch a hot engine? She gets tunnel vision. Yeah, it's a good point. She's awfully sensitive about him. We did work in an auto shop. She is awfully sensitive about him providing some wisdom about the motorcycle. Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that we wish Cam would look at, right? But she just, she, uh, she works best alone. She works most often alone. She works most effectively alone, but it's, I don't know, is that her best? I think that's what we've often seen. Joe's response to Cam after she poses the scalability problem with a curated approach to an effective search engine is absent an actual solution for handling millions of websites and feels almost like a deadpan repetition. We tell you which site is best. It actually reminds me of Boz. Boz, because he's a butler, man. It's what he does. You know I love that reference. Evan Mistray, thank you for making me think about the Robo Butler. See, I can't. So yeah, Cam has presented an excellent concern, a real life issue that will be something they come up against. I think Joe has to go back into sales mode because he doesn't have a response for it, but it does get in a little bit. He is thinking about it, and it is why he ends up presenting the solve of we need more Haleys. Is that scalable? I mean, they have to find what the right balance looks like for their model. The AgEc office has a slightly unsettling green filter wash to it now, in addition to the yellow, especially when Boz and Tonya are in Donna's office. In a way, it reminds me of a Thomas Anderson's Neo office in The Matrix before his mind is freed. The filter, wash, or hues must be deliberate to subtly increase anxiety. Fair enough. I definitely noticed it too. Yeah. I mean, it's not just light coming in, it's green. I could have been a surfer at Comet. Something dealing with music, guitars, or fighter jets or planes would have been fun. Okay. You're hired. Let's get those contracts. Okay. Katie outlines her death metal organization methodology that she applied to her brother's collection. She's so excited to discuss it that Gordon questions whether it's actually her brother's collection and not hers instead. And he receives a split-second processing smile sigh from her. After all, I get the motivation to hide behind her brother if the collection is hers, as metal discrimination or judgment is real, a slew of negative attributes or stereotypes. It probably really throws normies for a tailspin if you're female and let that cat out of the bag. She does throw the metal horns up shortly thereafter, and Gordon replies in kind. Deepest apologies to you that I might have done the metal horns backwards or wrong earlier. Yeah, I mean, I think there's also a fair amount of double entendre that's happening in that conversation. And I don't know that she's trying to do it, but Gordon can receive it that way and she's happy for him to do that. So I think there's a lot going on in that monologue from Katie. But great points here. Good information. Since season 1, it's been asserted several times that Cam's operating system for the Giant was the machine's soul. The term crept in another time or two since then, too. The film The Terminator was prominently featured in season 2. Timothy Bondum uses the uncommon and very specific word immolate to describe Joe's giant truck flambe. Wait, why do those things matter? Well, I suspect that a writer on the show has a thing for my favorite industrial death metal band, Fear Factory. They're grandfathered. Me being hypocritical and liking this death metal vocals band. Their first album, Soul of a New Machine, 1992, was named in reference to the Terminator franchise and would serve as a theme for future albums. While Soul of a New Machine was not a favorite of mine, it features a song called Self-Immolation. One of the reasons I wanted to bring this comment in also is that there is a book called Soul of a New Machine. I believe it was a 1981 or 1982 book, and it was a book that the writers were invited to read to prep for this show. So that's a very interesting other reference with that same title. Okay, maybe I'm too sensitive to this, but Gordon placing his hands on Reese's shoulders made me squirm a little. There was a salesman who would do that to me occasionally in my old office 15 years ago. It was so uncomfortable feeling that I always just blew it off because it felt more uncomfortable in my head, making it confrontational or weird. But anyways, There's also a body language theory that these kinds of actions come from an assertion and or feeling of dominance over another, and it's not necessarily a conscious motive for the one displaying the behavior, like a tell. Yeah, I mean, also like the way I read it was like that could be perceived as sexual harassment depending on the situation. If it's unwanted, it could be absolutely looked at it that way. That's the kind of thing that if you do that now, you're taking a real risk, like an HR related risk. But I also wonder, is Gordon flirty with Risa? I feel like Risa's a person who would call Gordon out on that, and she doesn't. So does Risa, like, is that like a dynamic of their relationship? Was it before she started working there? I'm not sure. And if so, how's she going to feel about Katie coming to town? Because raunchy power, or raunchy metal, whatever it's called, raunchy power, I think. Anyway, all right. Joe points out that one would be surprised that Mackie from Gold's Gym has his MBA, presumably because he appears to hit the weights regularly. I guess the lifter stereotype doesn't gel with Joe's assumed societal viewpoint of what an MBA graduate looks like. Joe was born around 1948, and I shouldn't try to explain his behavior away as just boomers will be boomers. Yeah, it's like a interesting thing to hear Joe say. It's very stereotypical for sure. Rover's comet competition really is causing pain for them, especially when Donna enjoys Comet so much. Rover probably feels something like economy class to Donna, or the unwanted stepchild with whom she's stuck. And she did it to herself, friends. She's the one who made this competition happen by stealing the idea. She made her bed. Lenny is watching TV outdoors in a recliner. Again, this too feels like deadpan comedy to me. However, there is a relatively current model to the period of the episode, Ford Mustang GT in the driveway. So somebody must have some energy in that family still. Yeah, what an interesting, I don't need more of Lenny and Lydia, but I like the little vignette that we see of them here. He's just, dead of winter, out on his armchair outside, watching TV. Why isn't he in the house? Anyway, okay, so there's that. Cam wants Joe to take a buyout offer so he can spend more time with her. I think that's genuine, that she really likes to have her person near her to help with feelings of safety and security. Joe's initial concern in the Airstream is his insecurity about her possibly wanting to move out. Those insecurities have probably been on his mind since she jettisoned so many boxes into the dumpster. Sure, and I also think it's a major red flag when somebody buys another place to live. When they seemed to be moving in with you. That feels like a discussion that needs to be had. That I guess they didn't, because he's raising it here. It's like, yeah, okay, cool Airstream. Hey, can we just, why are we here? Like, I feel like he needs to raise that here. Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it goes beyond insecurities. Like, yes, there are insecurities here. And I think they're being awfully good about hearing each other's answers and brushing them off. But do they have the same idea of what they want the future to look like? Because as much as they can be like, oh, you live in an Airstream now and I don't live in an apartment, and you have this company and I don't, it's fine. Like, practically speaking, is it? Like, where are they going? I don't know. Okay. The Breeders' Cannonball Needle Drop is pretty gosh darn fun. It's such an iconic song from that period. I don't love it, but I certainly like it. I mean, I own the album for whatever it's worth. No Aloha is really enjoyable for me from that album. Yeah, I recognize it too. It's not like a favorite song, but it very firmly puts me in the time period. Cameron may have been wanting to christen the camper with Joe, but he's fast asleep within a minute. She returns to the campfire and appears quite deflated after everyone has left her by herself. Cameron doesn't appear to feel like she's having her needs met and appears profoundly saddened. Would she strike Jacob Wheeler as the kind of gal who's never satisfied? Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting reference to bring in at the end. I think his point to Joe when he said, you seem like a guy who's never satisfied. It's like, no matter what you want, you're always going to be more ambitious and always want the next thing. Cam feels lost. Like Cam isn't working on something now and wants the next thing. Cam feels like, I don't know what she's looking for right now. I don't know what would make Cam happy right now. I don't know if Cam knows that. She's got Joe, but she doesn't look happy here. And there she is, like, sort of doing things to distance herself, literally, in the relationship. So I'm really interested to see what Cam settles on as a thing that she wants. I don't fault her for having these questions. I think we hit these moments in our lives sometimes. And it's important to sort of step back and say, what am I looking for? And I wonder what is going to be the thing that lights her fire. Maybe literally being that she's at a fire pit right now. So it's going to be interesting. When Boz and Tonya have their tiff about the $326,000 he owes, I just noticed he actually grabbed her elbow and rotated her about an eighth of a turn when saying, "Hey, wait a minute, that's awfully aggressive." Man, he's lucky he didn't take a backhand to the face. Geez, hands to yourself, guys. Good point. More than one like physical moment between guys and the people they work with here. Sewage. The thought of sewage making contact with my skin is terrifying. This image of Cam getting splashed with it has lived rent-free in my head for about 7 years. Oh gosh, Heaven the Stray. Fair. Absolutely disgusting. Man, so gross. Cam's had a day. She is exhausted, wants to shower, definitely, and wants to go to bed, but she appears to want Joe to follow her to the bathroom to talk. She's appearing to want further contact, maybe some kind of emotional comforting. Yeah, I was reading the same thing. It is not the right outcome for her that Joe decided to go back to the party. She's like, no, I want to shower. I want to go to bed. And he's like, yeah, okay, great. Even if that's not what she really means, he wants to go back to the party. And that's fair. She's requiring a fair amount of comforting. Does he want that forever? I don't know. Does he want all, like, sometimes maybe he wants to sit with the people he invited to the party at his place, With Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan being so prominently referenced in this episode, it's kind of amazing how tightly we've had events packed between the November 93 Cambridge coffee pot to what's no further in the future than February 94, but especially surprising when the assault on Nancy was January 6th, 94. We've not heard any mention of that assault, so it makes me think this is January 6th, 94 when they're watching TV at Joe's. However, it could be as late as February 17th, 94. I think this is the Olympics. Nancy was at practice when the incident happened. It would not have been something that people would have been, it wasn't a competition that people would have been talking about. It was a practice. There wouldn't have been people commentating it. There ended up being footage of it because they, were going to get Nancy at the venue with people like venue workers, venue ops people crowded around her, and she famously going, why? But that was not a competition setting. The US championships, it is a really tight turnaround. When she got, the perpetrators here did a very bad job. Like, there's a lot of things you can do to a knee that will take you out for long enough for her to miss an Olympic Games in a month. But that is not the outcome here. She ends up recuperating in time for the Olympics. She missed the US championships, which Tonya did compete at. So that wouldn't have been a Tonya versus Nancy meet. The Olympic Games is when this probably would have been set. So we're looking at mid-February 94 is what the Tonya Nancy thing that everybody was watching was looking at. And this is where we're going to get a competition with announcers. So it is amazing how tight that turnaround was. I can't believe there was only a month there, because having your knee bashed like that with like a month, 5 weeks to go before you're meant to be competing at the biggest event of your life would have been devastating. But you all already know how I feel about timing in this episode and in season 4 so far. So Joe's fear of click beetles is unfounded, and as Gordon mentioned, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is probably just Joe confusing the horrible earworm, the SETI eel, with the beetle. They would crawl into your skull through your ear canal and wrap around your cerebral cortex, rendering you highly susceptible to suggestion, followed by madness, then death. I'm wondering if this is a metaphor for Joe's fear of settling down with Cam and becoming complacent like vegetative Lenny in the recliner in the country. The absence of apparent vitality is enough to give one chills. It's like a nursing home before the nursing home. Nicely described. Yeah, you said that way better than I was trying to say that. Thank you for articulating a thing that I couldn't put my finger on. Diane telling Boz that Donna was ready to sell Rover to AOL looked like it made his stomach drop. In his anxiety and desperation to make something with Rover work, he ended up shooting himself in the foot. Cam rescuing the Rover algorithm unfortunately puts her in a somewhat awkward position with Joe and Gordon, should they find out that she is the one who gave them the breakthrough. The expression on her face as she's listening to Joe's hair on fire rant about Rover's Series A funding is a solid end for the episode. Yeah, it's a big secret, right? Once again, working at odds with where Joe is in this episode. And it's just so interesting. She does this thing that helps Boz, but also helps Donna. Of all things, my, how much water must be under this bridge now. Gosh. Anyway. All right, quote Beatles. Click 1. Are you trying to make an honest Lenny out of me? Says Joe. Nice. Click 2. See, enthusiasm feeds them. Also a Joe quote. Click 3 is from Gordon. Are you sure this was your brother's collection? Click 4 is a Donna quote. How can you lead this effectively if you're not speaking the same language? Pull it together. Click 5, also from Joe. We need more Haleys. Click 6, also from Joe. I wouldn't miss my first night in Lydia and Lenny's honeymoon hotbed. Evan, you're loving the Lydia Lenny in this episode, aren't you? Click 7 from Gordon. Must be pretty snug out there in that Airstream, like two giants living in a thimble. Yeah, yeah, there we have one in common. And we've got another one in common. Click 8 from Boz. We are so screwed. The light from Screwed is going to take 1,000 years to reach us. That was good, right? I like that. And that is 404, Tonya and Nancy. Yeah, we've got some important things being set up for us here. We've got a new fun character. I apparently have a new fun possible infatuation to track that I'm so delighted about. Let's see what comes out of that. Yeah, I mean, lots of good stuff here in this episode. And we are, approaching the halfway mark of season 4. Can you believe it? So let's go out there. Let's keep watching Halt and Catch Fire, everybody. Bye.